The 18th regular meeting of the Medford City Council will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Camuso. Present. Council Cavriello.
Present.
Council Knight.
Present.
Vice President Lemon Curran.
Present.
Council Marks.
Present.
Council Penta. President Dela Russo.
Present. 7 present, none absent. Please rise to salute the flag. Aye. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 15-461. A public hearing will be held in the Howard F. Alden Memorial Chambers, City Hall, Medford, Massachusetts, on Tuesday evening, May 19th, 2015, at 7 p.m. on a petition by Incident Clear, LLC, doing business as Medford Truck and Auto Repair, to operate an automotive repair shop, Class 4 license, at 11 Hall Street in an Industrial 1 zoning district. Petitions and plans may be seen at the office of the City Clerk, Room 103, City Hall, Medford, Massachusetts, 781-393-2425. Call 781-393-2501 for any accommodations, etc. City of Medford, by order of the City Council. Public hearing is opened. All those in favor, anybody speaking in favor of this matter, please present yourself to the podium and declare yourself as in favor of this matter.
Good evening. My name is George Bergeron. I'm applying for the permit.
Very good. So you're in favor of this matter?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else in favor? Anybody else in favor? Hearing and seeing none, I declare this portion of the public hearing closed and open it up to anybody in opposition. Is there anybody present in opposition to this matter before us? Hearing and seeing none, I declare that portion of the meeting closed and turn it over to Councilor Cavriello of licensing for recommendation.
Thank you,
Councilor.
Mr. President. Mr. President, I have reviewed the papers, and I find them in order, and I recommend approval.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Camuso. On that motion, Councilor Penta.
Judge, what's at 11 Hall Street right now?
It was the old Medford Break and Wheel. Bobby Maloney used to own the building.
Are you renting or buying?
We bought it.
You bought it.
Yeah. So we're just going to continue the same use as they did.
So this is nothing more than a change of name.
Correct.
Change your name to the same location, right, Mr. Clerk?
Right, licenses are transferable, so 15.
Okay.
Very good. So on the motion of Councilor Caraviello, seconded by Councilor Camuso, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck. On the motion of Councilor Camuso to take my items out of order, petitions, all those in favor, all those opposed, to take petitions, presentations, and similar matters. Petition by 15488, petition by Eversource Energy to address City Council on a brief presentation on Mystic Station 250 to Woburn Station number 221 KV transmission line project, questions and answers. With the folks, please come forward from Eversource. Folks, just so you know, we discussed this through Councilor Marks last week. Before Councilor Marks had an opportunity to address the matter with us, I had received a communication from Mr. Zamparelli of Eversource to address the council, and so I asked him to place a petition before us, and he has done so. So they're here to do this. Also, I should have announced at the beginning of this meeting, and I apologize, we are not broadcasting on Comcast right now. We are, however, broadcasting on FiOS. A request for work to repair the matter has been submitted to Comcast, and they need to get out here. I suppose, as we all know, waiting for the cable guy can be a challenge at times. So it is being recorded for rebroadcast, and it is broadcasting on the FiOS channel. So please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Bill Zamparelli. I'm the Community Relations Representative with Eversource. And I actually represent the gas company. We do have a number of gas customers in Medford, but I also represent this project. Let me introduce my counterparts. This is Jack Lopes.
Jack Lopes, also with Community Relations on a project.
Very good, Jack.
And David Velez.
David Velez, lead project manager with Eversource. I'm the project manager for the project we'll be discussing tonight.
Great. Well, if you could, just give us a brief presentation on the project. And I know the councilors, by way of motion, last week presented a number of questions. And I'm sure Councilor Marks, he'll be first to speak, and he'll be able to make those questions known to you so we can address them once you've made your
Our
preliminary
project
presentation.
manager, David Velez, will actually make the presentation, and then we'll handle questions afterwards.
Great.
Or anytime during, if there's questions that arise.
Members of the council, thank you very much. I will speak quickly and briefly on this, but please do feel free to interrupt and pull out any questions. This project is a new 115 kilovolt underground transmission line project that we are proposing. To give you some background on it, the need for the project comes from a study done by the Independent System Operator of New England, or the ISO. The way I refer to them, they're sort of the air traffic control of the electric system. They say where the power comes from, where it's needed, and how the system is behaving, essentially. And looking out into the future, when they assess load growth, new customers, businesses, et cetera, what they see is that there are deficiencies in the overall New England system, particularly in the greater Boston area, where there could be situations where if one line were to go down and perhaps another line were to go down, we could be in a situation where many customers would be out. I need to stress here that this is not a distribution line where we're talking about one or two houses or businesses or a street, but we're talking about regional impacts, multi-thousand customers per line, which is why the ISO gets involved in that. So they put out there that there is this need that needs to be addressed, and then various entities come forward with solutions to that need. Eversource, formerly NSTAR, your local utility in the region, came up with one package, or another entity from New Hampshire came up with another package. In the end, they were weighed and judged, and the ISO determined ours was the preferred solution. That allows us to take it forward, do more work, and eventually submit a petition through the permitting process. So that brings us to this project. I should say this particular one is part of a suite of projects. When you go to page 3, you'll see that. The Mystic to Woburn Line project is a 115 underground line going through the cities and towns of Everett, Boston, Somerville, Medford, Winchester, and Woburn. In addition to that, it's complemented by other projects like the Woburn to Wakefield project, and also a Merrimack Valley project that goes from New Hampshire into Mass. Altogether, these multiple projects comprise the Greater Boston solution we're referring to. But today we're talking about the one specific piece that goes through Medford. Moving on to page 4, underground line going from the Mystic Station we're all familiar with to our Station 211 in Woburn by Pond Street. The project is approximately 8 miles going through the towns I mentioned. What's interesting to note is that we actually have an existing underground transmission line along the route we're proposing. So while it's a new piece of infrastructure we're talking about, we actually intend and propose to build a new line parallel to the existing, approximately 10 feet away from it, the whole length of the route. The idea being that we'll have 2 lines side by side. The ends will be tied together, if it were. We call that bifurcating. They go to their breaker terminations at the same point, and you have a line that is doubly strong as the original. Page 5, you'll see the project map from end to end from Everett Station to Woburn. And on the next page, we have a zoom in of just Medford, where you'll see that we're coming in from Somerville on Route 38, going down the length of it up to South Street, down South Street, across the Mystic River, up Winthrop Street to the Rotary, and again 38 the whole way down to Winchester. Again, this is paralleling an existing line that is already there the whole way through the route. The next page, page 7, talks about the project schedule, which I think is a key point to address based on some of the questions we saw. We are just in the beginning stages of this project. We did hold an open house, a series of open houses over the last couple of weeks, including one in Medford at the high school on the 11th. The next step for us is to take our petition and file it with the Department of Public Utilities, specifically their Energy Facilities Siting Board. We hope to do that very soon, this month, actually. That will kick off a long public process with the EFSB that we think can go at least 18 months. Part of that will be public participation from members of the public, from various cities and any other stakeholder group. There will be notification sent to abutters and those within 300 feet, notification sent to all the various municipal entities and any other stakeholder wants to be informed. That comes directly from the DPU, not from us. But as you see, we're doing a lot of outreach efforts on our own, and we're glad to push out that information on our own as well. So with that 18-month period of review as a minimum, we're thinking construction starting as early as 2017, and the entire 8-mile project would last roughly until the end of 2018 when we could put it in service. That wouldn't be the entire 8 miles construction the entire 2 years, but bit by bit, section by section. Next steps, as we mentioned, we have been, for the last several months, collecting input from the towns. We've met with the mayor's office. We've met with the DPW here in Medford, as well as all the other towns. We've conducted open houses. The third step is filing that petition, again, which we hope to do soon, and then the DPU process. The proactive project outreach, talking about the various people and stakeholders involved here, from municipal officials, planners, property owners, residents, all are going to have an opportunity to reach out, learn more about the project from us, provide their input either directly to us, to the DPU directly. They will hold their own public hearings as part of their stakeholder process, and then that all goes through the hearings through the state agency in Boston. And last, we have contact information. There's a public hotline, 1-800 number, where we are collecting any questions and input that might come. Also an email, also a website right now that gives some general information, not just about this one specific project, but the entire Mass New Hampshire solution, as the website implies. You have all of our contact information for city officials to use as well. I'll leave it at that and take any questions.
Very good. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership in having Eversource come down on this very important issue. And I'd like to thank the gentleman for coming tonight. You just mentioned the project itself, 18-month, I guess, which is going to start now, of public involvement. And the actual project is 2 years. Did I hear that correct?
We anticipate construction lasting roughly 2 years.
2 years. So if it's an 8-mile route and Medford is 3.2 miles of that 8-mile route, can we figure out roughly how long you will be doing construction in the city by that, or is that not a good estimate?
It's an excellent question. I can't give you a reliable answer to that right now, because what we are in the process of doing today is the engineering, specifically the underground engineering. We've figured out our route, which was easy because we're following an existing line. What we need to figure out is all the underground infrastructure, whether that be our own electric lines, water, sewer, gas. We all know there's a lot of that in the area. We have engineers going through records, actually lifting manholes to collect inverts, figuring out what is in the street, and their job is, as we call it, threading the needle to find a way to place our pipe and also the various manholes that'll be required to do this. If it was smooth sailing and we had no interruptions, I would say construction would go very quickly through Medford. If we encounter a lot of utilities that need to be relocated, a lot of conflicts, then it would take longer. I can give you a much better answer to that question once I've seen the engineering, which I expect to be in the middle to late July.
Okay. And I assume, from what I understand of the project, it's going to be a 24-inch wide trench, 6 feet deep?
5 feet deep.
5 feet deep. And if you were going to install a manhole cover where you're able to, I guess, monitor this line and so forth, what size of trench is a manhole cover, roughly?
The manhole is much larger than the trench itself. The manholes are roughly 18 feet long by, I believe, 12 feet wide. I can get back to you on that. 10 wide. They're quite larger, so they're not built as part of the trench. They are their own excavation that interrupts the trench, as it were. Typically, we like to do a precast manhole where the area is excavated, manhole gets dropped right into place and gets built into the duct system.
Right.
If for some reason we can't do that because of other conflicts, we can form and pour it in place. The purpose of those manholes is not just to monitor and to do maintenance, but actually for the splicing. Again, this is an 8-mile stretch. The cable itself that will go inside the pipe only comes in reels about 2,800 feet long. So roughly every 2,800 feet, you have to do a splice, which is where the manholes come in. That's where the splicing operation takes place.
Okay. And according to the website, it said the manholes were going to be placed approximately 2,000 to 2,400 linear feet.
That's a very rough estimate. Again, that's in a perfect world. If you take these, it's a little bit more. I'd say it's more like 24 to 2,800 feet. Again, in a perfect world, if the line were going straight, you would stretch out that 2,800-foot cable and put a splice at every one. As we know, it's not a perfect world. There's going to be bends and turns. We may have utilities that are blocking, and we may have to move the manholes closer together. That's why there's really no way to give an accurate number of the manholes today until we see the engineer.
Not accurate, but we should be able to get a ballpark.
I can tell you that roughly we're anticipating in the neighborhood of 17 manholes throughout the 8-mile project.
And in Medford, roughly?
I haven't even seen that to count that, to be honest. I would hate to.
But you should be able to give somewhat of a ballpark. I mean, if you're going to put them 2,000 to 2,400, and I realize it's not a perfect world, but based on 3.2 miles, roughly out of the 17, are we talking maybe 7, 8?
We could take the 8-mile route, you know, the 17 manholes divided by 8, but don't ask a communication major to do that math on the fly. But, you know, you could do it that way, but I would not say that's an accurate assumption. We have to do the engineering first.
It really depends on where the turns are in the angles. So they may need an interim manhole in some locations.
Right, but you understand the concern. The concern is that it's one thing to dig a 2-foot wide, 6-foot deep, 5-foot deep trench, and then to have an 18-foot by 10-foot manhole, which to me is a pretty sizable project, which leads to my second question. I know you said it's going to be in the proximity of the existing line. Whereabouts does this fall on the street?
Again, that's the question that the engineering will have to answer. I can't tell you right now if we're on the sidewalk, on the side of the road, on the middle of the road.
That's huge.
That's
huge.
That's why the engineers are getting paid a lot of money. They have a big job to do to figure out where that's going to go for the entire model. And it won't be consistent. It might be on the sidewalk in some parts. It might shift to the middle of the road here. We're trying to avoid impacts to existing utilities. So if we have to snake and move around.
Have you brought an engineer on board?
Yes, we have power engineers.
And is there a reason why they're not here tonight?
They're based out of Minneapolis is their home office, although they do have a team working in South Attleboro. But frankly, they just look up plans and records and pull manholes.
Right. This can't be the first project of this nature that's being done in the area, correct?
No.
So we must be other towns that have had this done. Would you say in your best estimate that, and I realize you're not an engineer, but are we looking at disruption to the roadway?
Certainly, this project will be in the roadway, so the excavation we're talking about, whether it be the trench or the manhole, the majority of it will be in the public roadway.
Including the sidewalk?
Potentially.
Okay. So my next question, and I'd like to have those questions answered, Mr. President. I'm sure maybe you can fire off an email to the engineer to find out exactly where this falls on the street as this project gets a little closer. I think that's very important from a public safety standpoint in the community.
Of course.
And if you're familiar with our city in the morning and at night turns into a cut-through from everyone leaving and going into Boston, vice versa. And our streets are packed in the morning.
Very familiar. I'm one of those people that's driving through.
You're probably right. So you can imagine. Now, you mentioned that this project will be phased in. Will the project 3.2 miles in the city of Medford, will we be doing a quarter mile and then filling up the area and moving on, or are we going to dig 3.2 miles and then go back and fill? How maybe if you could just explain how.
We want to do it in the most efficient and least impactful way. And what I mean by that is, again, once we get the engineering and we see where we're going to be, we don't have to build this from point A to point B. We can do it in phases. So for instance, the line goes right in front of the high school. We might decide it's a good idea to not do construction during the school year and save that for the summer. We could save that piece to a point that's less impactful. We can likewise solicit input from the towns that, hey, we really do not want you here in the middle of the summer. We'd rather you go into the winter. We can take all that input and phase the project, as there's a lot of work to do in different parts. You know, for instance, one of the things we have to do is cross the Mystic River. We have a solution that we're working on for that involving a HDD, a horizontal directional drill. It might make sense to do that in the winter months as opposed to the peak parkland use in the summer. These are all the considerations that we'll take into account when we make our construction and traffic management plan. But I'd say we're at least a year off from that.
Well, look, is it anticipated the construction will take place during the day, or has there been any?
I don't think that's the case at all. I think we would look at if it's a business area, we may want to do it from, 7 or 8 at night to 6 in the morning, something that wouldn't affect their business operations. If it's residential, we'll probably be limited to daytime, because we wouldn't want to affect anybody's sleep patterns.
Okay, and
Just to speak a little on the construction. Typically, we have an open trench of 200 to 400 feet maximum. And it's kind of a revolving trench. So as someone is digging it up, the crews are behind putting the conduit in, and they're right behind paving. So it's a continuous, we don't go and do a 3.2-mile trench. And so we work on a specific area, and we move right along. And then at night, for the areas, we'll plate them for the night, come back the next morning, and just continue picking up. So the impact on a certain area should be 1 to 2 days outside of the manhole installations, just on the duct tank.
now with all this digging, I realize the trench is not that much, but the manhole may be some considerable digging, especially within neighborhoods. Do you go into homes and surrounding areas to see if there's any possible damage done by the construction work? To what extent do you ensure the safety of area residents and their property?
As far as surveying of foundations and properties, that's typically not done unless we're doing blasting, which is not anticipated here. This is, while this is a big impact to anyone who sees this from the outside world, this is relatively straightforward utility construction, and we employ very experienced contractors who do this every day, day in and day out. So we don't anticipate any ancillary damage or impacts to residences outside of the construction zone. Obviously, in terms of safety for the construction zone, employ best practices, OSHA standards. We, keep our sites very safe. As far as alerting residents, that's where community relations comes in, and they have a robust program from speaking with folks like you to advertising and local media to hanging door hangers.
We'll have a community relations program to address all of that. We'll advise them when we're coming through. They'll have understand our schedule. We'll have it on our website, and we'll have contact numbers available to the community. If anybody has concerns, we want to hear it so that we can address it. It's our intention to try to be proactive and address any concerns.
So you mentioned you have a hotline. Will that be manned by someone, or is that where you just leave a phone message?
Right now, I believe it's a phone message. Right, but we follow up the following day. I mean, that's typically the process that we've used at this point. But as we get more into construction, I think you'll find that this becomes much more engaging. You'll find that there'll be a conversation going on with the community.
Okay, and as many Medford residents are aware, with the Fast 14 project that took place right out here in front of City Hall with the bridge construction, the City of Medford entered into a comprehensive mitigation program. And has there been any discussion about mitigation and what the impact may be on this community and how we may be able to benefit from mitigation?
I think we've had some discussions with Mayor McGlynn, not specifically because it's pretty early in the process. Typically, once we have it engineered, we'll have a better idea as we start to move toward permitting, we will be seeking grants of locations. We will actually have a host agreement with the community, and we'll address all of that at that point. That will probably be sometime in the fall of this year.
And will equipment be left on the street, or will you have a place to house your equipment?
I don't know.
That's something that we have not developed yet. Again, we're very early in the stage of construction. Plan will be developed, but not developed yet. That's something I think we'll have to address community to community. Obviously, if we're in the middle of a trenching operation on the street, we would not want to demob that every night if we can avoid it. But if we were, say, in the middle of a town center, or if we were in a highly congested area, we're not going to leave our equipment there, clogging it up further when we're not working.
We would try to find a staging area, and we would arrange a leasing arrangement or something to ensure that that's addressed.
Right. Mr. President, just if I could, if we could make part of the committee report also that we get responses back from the engineering department and also from the city administration regarding any dialogue that has taken place regarding potential mitigation with this project. And I appreciate the gentleman for coming tonight.
Thank you. Yes, and the clerk is taking those down to make those part of a ongoing resolution. If I may, from the chair, there's an extensive ongoing construction project going on now in the Winthrop Street area between Mystic Valley Parkway. You may have seen it in some of your preliminary work. They've run into a lot of obstacles there with relation to ledge. It's also been a tremendous burden on the community and people who traverse that area, both local people and just people who make their way periodically through Medford. It's been impactful, and it's gone on a long time. Although it's going to result in a great improvement on the egress of wastewater and runoff, nonetheless, the impact of the project has been hard on people. My sense is that you're going through that neck of the woods, which will perhaps be repaved and pristine once you start digging again, and that's going to be a tremendous concern for people. Can you address that at all for us?
Well, we'll leave it in better condition than we find it, I can assure you. And if these are all new streets, we will address that. We'll pave curb to curb if that's the case.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So next is Vice President Longo-Kern. Madam Vice President.
Thank you, President Del Russo. Thank you for coming, gentlemen. I think Councilor Marks asked a majority of the questions, but I just had a question with regards to your public open house on May 11th. Who was that for the administration, and what type of meeting was that? Just because I was unaware of it.
It's kind of a trade show format, if you would. We had a series of tables set up with different aspects of the project, and we had subject matter experts that were available that evening. And actually, we've had 4 of them for this particular project, one in Somerville, one in Medford, one in Chester, and one in Woburn. And we had actually invited people from Medford to join any one of those open houses, and I actually spoke with a couple of Medford residents at the Winchester open house when we did hold it. But I think that process was available so they could see a demonstration of the project. It was actually a taped
video. We had a video.
Right, a video and a taped message, and it actually drove the entire route, and someone could see what the extent of the project would be.
We had photographs of what the trenching and manhole excavation looks like. We had video explaining the horizontal directional drill technology. We had a layout of the timeline for the public process, and we had basically people stationed at each one of those tables to speak to those matters.
Who was invited?
Everyone who was on either the preferred route or the alternate route, anyone who lived on those routes 300 feet on either side. So we had something in the vicinity of about 4,000 attendees that were invited.
Oh, wow. 4,000 people invited.
I shouldn't say attendees. We did not have a large turnout at the Medford event. I think it was about 17 or 18.
Oh, okay.
But I think the point was that they did attend some of our other venues, and we understood that.
Notified via local newspapers in Boston.
Oh, but you sent out 4,000 letters. That's what. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh,
I
good.
believe we sent the entire council a invitation via email.
Oh, via email, okay.
As well as, other city officials. And I think our intent was to widely advertise this as much as possible.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm glad you invited so many people, especially the people on the route. I grew up on South Street, so I know a lot of my neighbors would be concerned, prior neighbors. With regards to when you start the project, will you be leafleting the sections as you do them with contact information if people had questions or concerns or? Absolutely. Okay, so we'll be leaving something at everybody's door. We're going to be working on your house, near your home in the next week. Okay.
And we'll have an active website that will, advise people of what the schedule is and what the most recent activities will be.
Thank you. Yeah, just ask that definitely take place, that residents know, a week in advance of when work will be, where and when work will be scheduled, because those will be the crux of the calls we get from concerned residents, what is going on and what's being done up in front of my house right now. So it'll be good if they can have your contact information with any questions they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Councilor Caraviallo.
Thank you, Mr. President. My glasses kind of aren't strong enough to read your picture, but can you detail where the project will be starting and the main road that's going down? It looks like
In Everett?
where you're starting in Medford.
In Medford, okay. Basically, we're on Mystic Avenue.
Okay.
We're heading from
Mystic Avenue down to Route 16 and then, or into Medford Square.
To South Street.
to South Street, and then we go under the river. at
So,
South-
so it's going to go Mystic Avenue, Mystic to Main,
Correct.
to South, and then up 38
Under the river,
under the river and through the woods,
up Winthrop Street.
and all the way into Winchester.
Yeah, and then 38 all the way to Winchester.
Okay. And like the president said, that's going to be all newly paved road, and Council Knight won't be sleeping for a few more nights because he lives at that corner there.
We're aware of all the work that's going on, and if we had the flexibility to get on this quicker and to go ahead and say install while that was being opened up, whether that be next week, next month, we would. We are bound by the DPU process. We are not allowed.
Well, like I say, that route is a major route in the morning and the afternoon.
Right.
During the rush hour time.
Right.
So I mean, even with the traffic that's there from the projects that's ongoing now, it's been a disaster for the last 2 years, and especially when they close it on a Saturday, that's been bad. So, do you have a timeline? Do you have a date you're looking to start in Medford?
We're talking about starting construction in first quarter of 2017, assuming that we receive approvals from the FSB, and then we would have an 18 to 24 month
So
construction
between
schedule, all of which wouldn't be in Medford. The 18 to 24 months would be the entire project, so there would be, phases going on.
now will the bridge project that's going on in Medford impact you also?
Craddock Bridge project?
Yeah.
No, we're not on that.
Just also during the construction phase on the 18 to 24 month, the first phase is the civil work where we'll install the duct bank and the conduits. Then we'll have to come back later on, which is still part of the construction, but that's when we will need just access to the manholes to pull the cable and do the splicing.
That's actually a good point. So of those 2 years, it's not a 2-year civil construction project with excavation and such. It is half civil excavation, half electrical wire pulling and splicing.
And like I say, because a good part of that does encompass the route that the buses take to the school, both ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caraviallo. Councilor Penta.
Could you explain what a kilovolt is as compared to what's there now?
So a kilovolt is 1,000 volts. So the usage in your own house is a 120, 240 volt system. And so it's a very low voltage compared to these systems. This is the system, the regional system that delivers the majority of the power into the area is at a much higher voltage, which is 115,000 volts. So when we compare that, then from that point, the electricity is transferred down to what we call street level. It goes from 115,000 volts to 13,800 volts. And that's what you see on the street at the very top of the poles if it's an overhead system. And then you'll see the transformers on the poles, and those transformers then will reduce it even lower to the 120, 240 for your home, or 120, 208, 277, 480 for the commercial or industrial customers.
So by having this upgrade, you're improving what?
What we're doing is what was mentioned earlier, that the ISO New England did some studies, and they noticed that there were some deficiencies in the area. So when there's faults, when there's a fault in the system, they came out that the existing line that's there right now would overload, and it could cause additional problems. If a line is overloaded, it could trip out, and when that trips out, it causes further problems, and it could escalate the issue and cause a kind of a domino effect. So what they're trying to do is to alleviate that. So if you lose what we call an N-1-1 condition, where you lose two pieces of equipment at the very high level, at the high voltage, we can still maintain the whole region running up and running without any deficiencies.
What's the cost of the project?
The cost that we've estimated right now, and I will stress that the way the ISO petition process goes is, in this early stage, we're in what we call the conceptual phase of the project. And so the level of accuracy they ask for us is a plus or minus 50% budget. And we are estimating the project at $75 million. That's what we put forward to the ISO. And again, that is before engineering happens. The next level from the ISO process is to go from the conceptual level to the planned level, where we go to a plus or minus 25%, and we expect to be doing that in the fall. We'll have a better accuracy of estimate with the benefit of engineering and having done more study with it. But the estimate that is out there today is $75 million.
So if it's $75 million and whatever the cost is going to be in the future, what portion of that $75 million is coming into the city of Medford? Do you have that broken down yet?
We do not. If the question is in regards to personal property tax, et cetera, that's something that could...
I think that would be something that we would actually calculate once we know what the real numbers are. We typically file a form of list with the city, which is a list of all of the personal property that is in service in the community, and they would calculate the value of that, and that would be the basis for the property taxes.
If I understand this correctly, National Grid is part of Eversource, correct?
National Grid is part of the other two projects that we have. There's three projects associated with the Greater Boston Solution. They are actively involved in both of those. We have a project that runs from the Woburn Station, which is an Eversource station, and to Wakefield Station, which is a 345 National Grid station. They're partnered on that particular project.
But on this particular project, this is a solely Eversource project, which is formerly NSTAR, so not involved with National Grid on this particular component of the overall solution.
So during this past winter, the electric rates went up approximately 39% because supposedly they can't find the energy, or the energy costs more, or whatever. What's this going to cost the city of Medford? Because somebody's going to have to pay for this.
I think I can speak to the cost issues. The cost issues are really a pipeline issue, a capacity issue coming up from the Gulf for available gas. I think what people need to understand is that the power generators have to buy gas on the spot market. They cannot buy secure pipeline capacity. If you're a heating customer, you do have secure pipeline capacity, but if you're a generator, you have to buy available pipeline capacity, and this winter was very difficult for them. That's why we saw such spikes in the cost of electricity this year. I have heard, and I can't say this for sure, but I do know that we will see a significant reduction as of July 1. They're expecting that the cost of a kilowatt hour may come down to the 10-cent range.
But to address the question specifically of this project and who bears the cost, it's important to note this is not strictly an Eversource project going through the 5 or so particular towns here, because this is a regional grid reliability project. The cost gets regionalized, not just to Eversource customers, but to all New England ratepayers.
But Medford will bear a cost, right? Medford ratepayers will bear a cost.
As everyone in New England, yes.
But you're already paying those costs. Part of your bill, there's a transmission charge, and that charge is for these types of projects to be built.
But it's going to go up now.
No, there's no change. There will not be any change on the rate, on the tariff.
He just said the cost is going to go up.
That specific element.
Well, I don't want anyone to think that this is going to be, we're getting a freebie here, because we're not.
No.
So is there any way that maybe you can figure out approximately what the cost can be once you get going?
For the town itself?
Yeah, for Medford.
Well, we're looking at the cost of a typical line to be anywhere from, it could range anywhere from $6 to $9 million per mile.
Per mile.
If I could suggest, I don't mean to interrupt, but why don't we make that part of the ongoing resolutions, is that your office get back to me to, in the overall scope of the project, what would be the community, per community expectation, or the customer's expectation of the cost to the average ratepayer for their electricity.
The issue that I have with that, Mr. President, is this, that you just said $6 to $9 million per mile, and we had approximately 3.2 miles, you said, in the city of Medford. But I think is that going to be fair enough to say that the entire community bears the cost, or is it just the location that it's going to serve? I mean, is this going to serve the entire city?
I think there's some misunderstanding here right now. I think this is a regional project, and it's intended to actually address the New England region, ISO New England's regional requirements. So this will be a charge that will be spread across the region. It won't be just the community of Medford or Winchester or Somerville. It will be the entire rate base in the system that will bear the cost of this project, as well as the other two projects that are associated with the Greater Boston solution.
But somewhere along the line, you're going to have some kind of an estimate what this is going to be.
Yes, there will be. And again, I think it's a little preliminary for us to come up with an answer right now, but we'll be certainly happy to respond to that.
And the last question, Mr. President, is you have this section from here to here that you're going to be resolving because you're trying to make it regionalized and all of that.
Right.
What about the points getting to it from both ends? Are they all regionalized, or are they going to have to be done?
I don't know.
Well, no, that, to the point that I was making earlier, this one particular 8-mile route is one of 3 unique solutions to this project. Again, there was one from Wakefield to Woburn, there's one from New Hampshire to Tewksbury. So, and that's just the 3 unique ones for Eversource. To address all the needs that were brought up by the ISO, there's actually somewhere in the neighborhood, I think 42 various projects that could go from a very simple, small line reconductor to new transformers and substations. Throughout the entire New England region, various utilities will be doing various projects. They all come together to solve this problem. I mean, again, using that air traffic analogy, I don't know why that works for me, but I would just say that this is to solve, air traffic on the East Coast, and we are looking at specific airports and specific routes, but it affects the entire region.
But to your question, I think we can provide you a better answer.
Okay.
And I think we will. I don't know we're there yet to have
Yeah,
that information.
whatever you do.
But
I think when I was talking about the $6 to $9 million per mile, that's a cost for us to install. It's not a cost that Medford residents will have to pay. That's the cost that we'll be using to come up with the personal property tax for the town for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. And Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much, and thank you to the folks from Eversource for being here this evening. I think this is a great opportunity for us to get some questions answered, but more importantly, this is the beginning of a long relationship from the way things look. So, you know, thank you very much for taking the time to be here for us this evening. It looks like we had an open house in May of 2015. Now there's going to be a filing in the second quarter of 2015, and the next step would be a public hearing. When do you anticipate that public hearing would occur? I know that you guys aren't the ones that control it or that are going to hold it, but I know that you also have experience in
I
this.
believe it'll be this fall.
This fall.
But again, that's a Department of Public Utilities Energy Facility Siting Board decision, and they will control that process. We will certainly be available and work with them, but it's really their process, but we'll be involved all the way through.
So in terms of a timeline, we're looking at a filing in the second quarter of 2015. In the fall of 2016, there'll be a public hearing, and then we won't see construction start until the fall of 2017?
That's right.
Fall of 15 for the first, in a couple months this fall, we would see potentially the first open house from DPU.
The first open house in the fall, okay.
And
Public hearing.
Yeah.
Public hearing.
Yeah, you guys do the public houses, right? They do the
Right.
public-
I've seen them where they do them anywhere from 3 to 4 months after the petition is filed.
3 to 4 months after the petition is filed.
Right.
I think the issue is simply that the agenda for the Energy Facility Siting Board is pretty packed. They have a number of projects that are pending, and so we don't know where we'll fall in that schedule.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. My concern is that we have a public hearing on the issue, and then 6, 12, 18 months pass, and then construction starts, and the residents forget about the public hearing that we had and what was discussed.
During that time frame, that's when they go through the discovery and they get all the comments from the residents, and there's a lot of things going on at that time for information requests. And there's a lot of communication going between the communities, the FSB, and Eversource.
Oh, no, absolutely.
And also, I would point out that a butters list that we use to notify everybody, those 4,000 plus invitees, that is the same list that the DPU will use
Right,
for their
by law for the
hearing. So there
for
will
butters.
be proactive reaching out to all those people.
This public hearing, when it's conducted, is this a public hearing that's exclusively for Medford, or is this a regional public hearing for the entire pipeline project?
The public hearing, I believe, will be regional, but we don't know that yet. We'll have to wait to see what the EFSB decides. But I think what is important to note is that all of the abutters that have been notified are certified by each city and town. We provide a full list, and they tell us who, if properties have passed hands in the interim, they'll tell us if there's new residents, and they would have been addressed in that process.
Mr. President, I'd like the committee to report reflect that the council requests that the public hearing be held in the city of Medford.
Very good. So
Regional or
that will
otherwise.
be an amendment to the ongoing resolution.
And again, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you coming down here. Like I said, I think it's important that we start this project off on the wrong foot. Councilor Caviello alluded to the fact that I reside right there in the neighborhood where the pipeline is going through, and if you repair the streets in better condition that they're in now, we still might need some work the way that things are right now. So I can certainly appreciate you guys taking the time down here, and I thank you for that. I think this is going to be the first of many discussions that we have. So with that being said, Mr. President, I rest.
Thank you very much, Councilor Nice. Councilor Caviello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was going to ask same question that Councilor Penta asked. You know, where does the consumer fit into this project here? But I think you have answered that. But my only other concern is, I would hope that you'd be coordinating with the city, especially when you get down to that South Street, Main Street area, that you're not going to be working at the same time that we're working on the bridge, because the city's going to be all constructioned out for a bit, for the next 4 years. So.
Well, we've been in touch with the city engineer and the DPW director, and we'll be working with them closely to try to work out a traffic management plan. So
Well, I mean, not so much traffic management, but, you know, that South Street, that South and Main Street area is going to be bogged down with the bridge project that's going to be happening there for the next 2 to 2.5 years. So, yeah.
That's the Craddock Bridge, right?
Yeah.
Will we affect that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to be working, you know, like 50 yards from it. You know, at some point when you make that turn there.
Okay. On Main to South.
When you turn on the south there. So, like I said, you know,
Well, we'll certainly work with them closely.
Yeah.
It's not our intention to
No, I know it's not your intention to do it, but I said that'd be a major concern, because now you'd affect the traffic going in, you know, bad enough where we're affecting the traffic that's in the square now. But, you know, Route 16 right now is a horrible road to ride on for the people that are gonna be, and with, you know, with this, at some point, when you cross over and you're gonna continue up, I really feel bad for the people that have been, you know, been living on that section for the last 2 years, construction. Now they're gonna have to put up another year or two of construction.
Again, I want to stress that our construction in any one specific area is not going to be a year or 2 years.
I know, but you're gonna be back in front of the house again, where they've been the last 2 years.
Yes.
They've been jackhammering, and, you know, I mean, their yards are ruined, their cars are ruined, their roads are ruined. Now they're gonna get a nice new street for about a year, and then you're gonna come up and dig it up again.
Well, I guess the only thing I can say is that we will, you know, leave it in better condition than we found it.
Well, you'd have to go curb to curb. You know,
Yes, and if it's a brand new street, we will go curb to curb.
Mr. President, can you make sure that's in the paper, that they do go curb to curb?
Duly noted, Mr. Counselor. Counselor Camuso.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank you guys for coming here this evening for this presentation. And I also want to thank Councilor Marks for bringing this forward last week. I realize that it's a few years away from actually putting the shovel into the ground, but this city council wants to make sure that the citizens know what's going on and what the timeline is. So I want to thank you, Councilor Marks, for and also President Della Russo for getting them here so quickly. Within 7 days, we're here with a great presentation, so look forward to the additional communication over the coming years, and we'll see where we go. And I do agree with Councilor Knight that we should have a public hearing here in the city of Medford, even if it's on top of other ones that may be mandated throughout the region that the project is taking place in. Even if it's separate and distinct, at least for our residents, to get the opportunity to be heard on this critical matter.
Thank you, Councilor Camuso.
Motion to receive and place on file.
So on the motion, will require some action.
Oh, I'm sorry. Withdrawn.
So on the main motion of Councilor Marks as amended by the several councilors, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So done. Thank you very much for your presence here, all of you.
Mr. President?
Thank you.
Members of the council, we appreciate the opportunity to start the dialogue, and we do see this as a dialogue. We'll be back in front of you, I'm sure, at periodic times to give you updates as to where this stands.
Thank you. We look forward to that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
President?
While we're on to suspension, Councilor Camuso.
Move to take paper 15-486 for the young lady in the audience from the Mystic Valley that is here on a paper.
Very good. So, paper number 1586, to the Honorable President.
486.
15486. What did I say? Thanks. May 13th, 2015, to the Honorable President and members of the Medford City Council, City Hall. Dear Mr. President and Councilors, I respectfully request and recommend that your honorable body approve of the following amendment, the revised ordinances entitled Compensation Plan and Leave Ordinances, Chapter 66, Personnel. City of Medford Amendment to Revised Ordinances, Compensation Plan and Leave Ordinances, Chapter 66, Personnel. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Medford in Chapter 66 entitled Personnel, Article 2 entitled Classification and Compensation Plans, Section 66-33, adding the following after Director of Veteran Services, grade CAF 12, title Outreach Agent, Substance Abuse. This ordinance is in response to City Council Resolution 15294 and is funded in the fiscal year 16 budget. Very truly yours, Michael J. McGlynn, comma, Mayor.
Mr. President, if I may.
Councilor, please do.
If I may, real quick on this particular matter, Mayor McGlynn actually gave me a call this afternoon. This is the paper that initiated here at the Medford City Council, and it's in direct correlation to the other stuff that Brooke and Penny are working on. We will be one of the first communities in the area to have a full-time Office of Substance Abuse and Treatment opportunity slash education, I'd like to assume. This is a full-time position. I believe Boston, under the leadership of Mayor Walsh, has a full-time position as well. But the mayor clearly worked with the council on this, and it is coming to fruition. So I want to move approval on this, and it's a department head position for this particular matter before us. So I'd like to move approval.
So on the motion of Councilor Camuso for approval, and I spoke with the mayor also this afternoon, and he'd like me to inform you all that he's moving forward on this and at our request, and that just a couple pieces of the job description are being tidied up before it's being advertised. So we're grateful for this measure, and I think the council can congratulate itself.
And I'd like to motion to waive the 3 readings on this, where it's...
With a motion to waive the 3 readings. Ma'am, do you wish to address us? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Brooke Hoyt, 120 Brookings Street, and I'm also a city employee through the Board of Health. I just want to give support for the position. It's a much-needed position. Substance abuse in the city of Medford and throughout the country is an ongoing issue. So establishing this type of position will just continue primary prevention outreach and recovery efforts. And again, it is much needed. We have the data to support it. It'll be a position that we can continue to monitor the data. I have not seen the job description, so I'm anxious to read the job description and know that the mayor and yourselves will provide the best opportunity for our community.
Right. And thank you for your good work on this matter.
Thank you.
Madam Vice President.
President Del Russo, did the mayor's office state when the job description will be ready?
They did not state when it would be ready. The personnel director can speak more about the position, but I know she's away on vacation at the moment. The mayor does want to have conversations with families and other people within the community about the job description before putting it into motion.
And this will be 40 hours a week? Did he say how much this was going to be funded for?
75 and 79,000 or 80,000.
CAF 12.
How much? 75 and 79?
Yeah, CAF 12, step 1, and then right through step 5, I believe.
It's a department head level.
Department head level, same as the Director of Veterans Affairs.
And do we have any idea of when the job will be advertised?
I assume once it's approved that it would be advertised immediately. I mean, I would give a couple weeks to put the description together, and then it would start as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, Brooke. Thank you, Councilor Del Russo. My only concern would be waiving the readings. I would like to have some sort of reason for the administration to come back and maybe discuss job description with us, maybe discuss when it goes out for advertisement, maybe possibly find out who's applying, and I would like the council to be involved in the process. I mean, it's a concern that each one of us have discussed week after week, month after month, especially, going through this epidemic. So my only concern would be waiving the 3 readings and giving up full control and allowing the administration to just do whatever they want. We've discussed it, whether it be school committee meetings or city council meetings or here at the floor. There are so many prongs to the problem, whether it be, prevention in our schools, treatment, lack of treatment, helping families get through what they're going through, helping the police and giving them the help they need. I mean, there's so many different things, so I don't want to get lost on 1 or 2 of the, probably 10 prongs that there are. We want to make sure that we have a say. So that I would say move approval tonight, but let it come back before us so that we can hopefully, and with that, if we could get the job description when it's complete, if we could make an amendment that we get the job description so we can review it and make our recommendations and be able to help with that. I think that's probably the best avenue.
Mr. President, I will withdraw my motion. but just to be fair and full disclosure for the viewing public, this is only to put the title in the personnel ordinance. Without us doing our job and approving this, there is no job. So, I mean, the description may not even be done until after the mayor knows that there's full support of this council, but I'll withdraw the 3 readings and see where it goes.
Point of information, Councilor Marks.
So if it's only for a description, is it safe to say that the money is already appropriated in this year's budget?
It says it right at the last line. The money is funded in the fiscal year 2016 budget.
Right, so once we approve it, then the money's there to fund it, so,
Yep, according to what the mayor says.
right. So I would agree with Council Longo.
I withdrew it.
Councilor Penta. You were all set, Madam Vice President, yes? Yes, I apologize.
During today, I don't know if you read in today's Globe, in the city, in the town of Plymouth, huge epidemic down there. They've had over 101 people, I think, have passed on. I think the governor was down there. And I believe there's something that's going down there with the sheriff of that particular county, and it's vastly spreading throughout the Commonwealth. You just made an indication, who is the personnel director?
Yeah, Louise Miller.
No, she said she wasn't.
Then I'm not aware.
Yeah, because when I spoke to her, she said she wasn't. So we don't know. Can we get Mr. Clark on this as a side note? Can we find out who the personnel director is?
Personnel director?
Who is the new personnel director?
At this point, it would be Louise Miller. She's
No,
the
in my conversation with her, she did not get that title.
She told me that she was too. Personally, she told me she was the director of personnel.
So could we just find out officially if she
And her
is?
salary was commensurate with that position.
Also,
just to let you know that,
pardon me?
you withdrew the 3 readings, okay?
Yes.
All I'm really doing from here is you're passing you to take the first reading.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to find out all this other stuff. I mean, you can't amend, you're gonna amend the first reading? Is that what you're doing? So you can ask some
It'll
other
be a side
questions,
paper,
but that's,
just a B
that's all
paper.
you're doing.
B paper.
Because I have to go, I'm advertising the first reading now.
If we could get the information that also comes back, and if it is a CAF 12, as we usually normally get in our budget, it puts the dollar amount next to it, so I agree with Council Longo. And I think we have never passed having an ordinance without knowing what the description is first, so I just think it makes sense. And no, on this one here, we have its first reading, and when it comes back for the next reading, they can put the salary, what the salary is going to be.
Right, so
In the description.
I'm just saying, you create.
Salary, description.
I'm just saying you gotta create your separate resolution, because I'm advertising the first reading.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing, you know what I mean? So create your.
Make it a B paper.
You want a salary, you want
Yeah.
a personnel director, you just make the resolution that, separate
That we
resolution on
request
that.
the salary and the job description for this position,
And you want the
with
personnel
the scope
director,
of
that's fine.
responsibilities, and for the information of the council, when timeframe for advertisement.
And also on the B paper, who was this personnel director?
Yeah.
And secondly, on the B paper, who is the acting personnel director?
Move approval for the first reading.
On the seconded, we have Councilor Knight next. Do you have a point of information you want to make? No.
If you want to, Mr. President, thank you very much. Brooke Hoyt, thank you very much for your work. I'm very happy today. I feel like this is very rewarding. This council came together and we all agreed on an issue. We worked together on it. We petitioned the mayor for action. The mayor was in agreement that there is a problem in the city. The mayor is in agreement that this problem is a crisis, and the mayor acted promptly. So with that being said, Mr. President, I wholeheartedly support the paper. I feel as though this is a step in the right direction, and it just shows what this council can do when we work together and we work with the administration to move towards positive results, Mr. President. So with that being said, I support this wholeheartedly, and I too move for approval.
Very good, Councilor Knight. So on the motion approved by Councilor Camuso, seconded by Councilor Penter, Councilor Knox.
If I could, and thank you, Brooke, for coming up and all your work on this. Is there going to be a dedicated space within City Hall for this new position? And if so, where will it be?
I'm not aware of a dedicated space at this point, but
Would you say the nature of this type of position would call for an area that,
absolutely,
that provides some privacy and confidentiality and so forth?
correct.
Okay. If we can make that part of the paper too, Mr. President, just where this office will be located. I assume there'll be an office if there'll be privacy and so forth, because of the nature of what's involved, Mr. President.
Very good. So as an amendment to the B paper, where will the office be located within the structure of
City Hall.
City Hall? So on the motion of approval, seconded by Councilor Penta, Mr. Clerk, would this requires a roll call as a matter of ordinance? No?
No, because
No.
it's only the first reading.
Very good. So all those in favor? All those opposed? That part carries. B paper, which was an amendment by B paper offered by Councilor Kern, which requests the job description, salary that will be advertised, as well as timeframe for advertisement, and I suspect timeframe for hiring, and also amended by Councilor Marks, request for the location of the office in City Hall. So that, one more thing, Madam President.
Quickly, what qualifications the administration is looking for, you know, degree of education, courses that, you know, this position will be required to have taken, just so we get an idea of.
Every city job description that goes out has that.
Scope of requirements. Okay, thank you.
And I think we had talked about a number
They always put on minimum and preferred.
Councilor Knight, did you have something before?
I did, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Based on the timing of the release of this paper, I do have concerns about the matter being held up because of the summer schedule of the council. So I'd ask that if in fact when the paper becomes ready and available for us to vote on, that we hold a special meeting immediately to take care of it if in fact it falls during the summer schedule.
And we make that as an amendment to the B paper as well. Call for a special meeting to vote on it. The paper will be back before us in 3 weeks. Very good. So we'll still be in normal session, if we have such a thing. Councilor Marks, you're all set?
Yes.
So on the motion of approval, all those in favor? Councilor Penta, I'm sorry.
It asked the chief a question. Are you aware of this position?
I am as of today, or actually a couple of days ago, I did understand this would be on the agenda for this evening.
Is this particular individual, whoever he or she might be, going to have access to police files and vice versa? Because apparently this is going to be part of it.
We expect to work very closely with whoever is in that position, as we do right now with the substance abuse agents here at City Hall, Brooke and Penny. So we'll provide them all the access that we can legally.
That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. So on the motion of approval, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Councilor Knight.
Well, we're into suspension. Can we take paper 15485?
15485. On the motion of Councilor Knight, while under suspension, we're going to take all these communications from the mayor. So on that motion of Councilor Knight, all those in favor, all those opposed, motion carries. 15485, to the Honorable President and members of the Medford City Council, City Hall, Medford, Mass. Dear Mr. President and Councilors, I respectfully request and recommend that your honorable body approve of the following amendments to revised ordinances entitled Compensation Plan and Leave Ordinances, Chapter 66, Personnel, City of Medford, Amendment to Revised Ordinances, Compensation Plan and Leave Ordinances, on the motion of Councilor Camuso to waive the reading, and if I could offer a synopsis, this was regarding a compensation plan for library employees, and it was is requested due to the recently negotiated agreement with Medford Library Staff Association, Local 4928, MLSA, AFT, MA, AFL, CIO. The contract will expire on June 30th, 2018, and this is a routine result of contract negotiations with this particular body, and it tidies up, I think, this year raise, and then is effective for the next 3 years at 2% equally each year for all those.
Mr. President?
Mr. Counselor Penta.
On this particular paper, you know what it shows? It shows something that seems to be pretty consistent here. For the next 3 years, there's a 2% raise, 2% and 2%. And from my understanding, as it relates to contracts that are forthcoming, I believe there's a whole host of them. I think it bodes well for the community to know that if employees all working for the same government, they all work for the city of Medford, they all work for the taxpayers. And I think we had this conversation many years ago. It would be nice if we could all step in line to the same amount on the percentages. The other entitlements, the other benefits is a different story. But at least it puts the house in a much better financial order to know that every employee is going to be wind up getting the same amount of money by percentage, because that's all the city can afford. That's number one. Number two, I believe there was a lady here a few weeks ago, and she was talking about the Medford Public Library and the possibility, because they haven't reached a certain dollar amount, that a waiver could be attainable. I believe that they just received their waiver from the Commonwealth of Mass, and they are one of 75 libraries that did receive that. And we're also in the Minuteman, the Minuteman category. So with that being said, Mr. President, not only do I move approval, but I think it's a good step forward, and I think it's a step that we really need to sit down, and knowing the fact that we had to get a waiver to get into that category, I think we need to talk about that, and maybe, Mr. Clerk, put that as part of the resolution of approval when the budget time comes, as it relates to the waiver that the Medford Public Library has now gotten, because they've been trying to get this for a few years. They now got it. And, you know, what is the situation that dictates the waiver, and what needs to be done so we can maybe go on the road, so to speak, without having to apply for a waiver? I mean, what's the necessary ingredients to stay out of the waiver category?
So this is the waiver for the accreditation, you're saying?
No, the waiver to there was a dollar amount that's a criteria that they have to be in. And I don't know if the proper word is certification or qualification.
But that we did, wasn't that last week's resolution?
That was a few weeks ago.
Point of information, we did ask for that last week.
But they got it. They've now been, they got certified with the waiver.
No, we asked for the dollar amount. I specifically asked for it.
No, I understand that, but that's what I want to find out. When they come in here to do the budget, let them come in to explain this. So a lot of people ask the question, why does the library need a waiver? What do they need the waiver for? What's the dollar amount involved? And how do we stay away from going into the waiver if something needs to be done? Is it because of the building that's in desperate need of help, between the roof leaking and the bathrooms that are despicable, and the books, and some of the books that go, I don't know, but I think we need to discuss this.
Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, you never shut my microphone off from when you took the paper out of order. I move for approval.
Mr. President?
Seconded. Councilor Camuso.
Yes, I would just like to go on record that although Councilor Penter's paper or motion or thoughts regarding the same exact increases across the board, it sounds good. I think it's unrealistic. We have lunch mothers, we have paraprofessionals that are making $11,000 a year, and then we also have other unions that are across the board that are making $100,000 a year. So to say that there should be parity amongst every single union, I just think that at this point that's what the unions do, as well as the other side of management sitting at the table, and that is called negotiations. If you just look at the past several years too, there's been situations where the city has gotten back language from contracts that were put in 1980s and 1970s, taking sick days back or personal days and things of that nature. And when that happens, usually there's the other side gets something back. It's called negotiation. So although I agree with Councilor Penter, it sounds great, I just think that it's a little bit unrealistic, where you can't compare the maxed out city worker and the maxed out lunch mother. It just, there's no equity when it comes to that. The 3% raise on 11,000 is not paying the gas bill increase each month. But with that being said, I'd like to waive the 3 readings on this paper too.
So on the motion for approval by Councilor Penta is seconded by Councilor Knight, and the motion to move the 3 readings by Councilor Camuso.
On that matter.
Councilor Penter, on that motion.
I hear what Councilor Camuso was alluding to, but you just mentioned somebody, a group that hasn't received a raise in, I think, 8 years, if not more. That's the lunch mothers.
Correct.
Okay? They haven't received anything. They're like the forgotten school in the whole school department budget. And when you talk about percentages, whether it's 1%, 2%, or 3%, my idea was just looking at it from the point of view, what would the dollar cost be? A lot of these contracts go from 0 to 6 months, and 6 months to 12 months, and then, so it's a barometer, it's a starting point. For those that don't remember, many years ago, I think John Galone, when he was the city manager, had indicated that that would probably be a pretty good way to start, so you'd have an idea where your money would be going on an annual basis rather than every 6 months. But if we're going to get into that, I would hope that the city administration this year recognizes loudly the lunch mothers in the Medford public school system who have dedicated themselves for year in and year out for the measly dollars that they make per hour, for which they love it because they're around the kids, but they've been the forgotten souls. And it becomes very tough, as Councilor Longo alluded to, and we just got a $2 million increase this past year to hire 7 new individuals making in excess of $90,000 a year. That's not right. So you need to take care of the people that are there that have paid their dues year in and year out, instead of hiring people at $90,000. We don't even know if we can sustain them this year in the budget. So the politics will certainly go around this budget.
Mrs. Giuffre, Mrs. DiChiara, Mrs. Szymanski, Mrs. Sermia,
Mrs. Gargola,
Mrs. Bazzanotti, all my lunch mothers. I loved every one of them.
So on the motions for approval,
Just
Councilor Camuso.
Just to follow up with that, I think Councilor Penta just proved the point that I was trying to make. If you have a bargaining unit that hasn't got raises in 8 years, like the lunch mothers, then the raises should be commensurate with the length of time that surpassed since their last raise. So I want to thank the councilor because I think we agree that my way is better on this particular matter.
Thank you. Councilor Knight, we're all set?
Move for approval, Mr. President.
On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And we waive the 3 readings, so the matter is approved. 15-483, communication from the mayor to the Honorable President and members of the Medford City Council. Dear Mr. President and Councilors, I respectfully request and recommend that your honorable body approve of the following amendment to revised ordinances entitled Compensation Plan and Leave Ordinances, Chapter 66, Personnel. City of Medford Amendment to revised ordinances, Compensation Plan and Leave Ordinances, Chapter 66, Personnel. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Medford in Chapter 66, entitled Personnel, Article 2, entitled Classification and Compensation Plans, Section 66.40, entitled Public Safety Personnel, is hereby amended by adding the following. Grade PS1A, title Student Officer, Step 1, $40,000, effective upon passage. The purpose of this ordinance change is to create a new classification for candidates attending the police academy. Upon graduation of approved police academies, the student officer will have successfully completed the prescribed course of study for basic police training and to exercise police powers as mandated by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 96B. Very truly yours, Michael J. McGlynn, Mayor. And with us tonight is the Chief to address this, and we have a motion for approval with the waiver of 3 readings for Councilor Camuso. Mr. Chief.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Mr. President, members of the council, Leo Sacco, Police Chief, live at 227 Elm Street in Medford. I want to thank you for hearing this evening, and hopefully we have your support. This is something the state had made an amendment to the law back in around 1995, so it's about 20 years ago, where they mandated, in addition to a number of things, that primarily that before an officer could exercise police powers on the street, they had to attend and successfully complete a police academy first. Back in the day, it was a thing where they could put officers to work and then wait for an academy to open up and then schedule them for an academy at that point. So when that change was made, the state also recommended that communities adopt a student officer category because they really do not have police powers until they successfully complete the academy. And right now, the academy, Basic Recruit Academy, is somewhere in excess of 800 hours of curriculum. So it only makes sense that they be appointed as a student officer first. Right now, we appoint them as police officers or patrolmen, as they are called in the ordinance. And they're appointed as police officers. They're reminded at the day that they're sworn in that their police powers do not begin until they successfully complete the academy. It could be a problem. It hasn't presented itself as a problem for us, but it could potentially be a problem if someone started to actually go out and effect an arrest because they felt as though they were sworn in as a police officer. That's the category that they're sworn in as. So it's safer for us to have them sworn in as student officers, and during that 6-month period that they're in the academy, they are student officers. When they complete and graduate, they'd be the badge pinning in their full uniform here at City Hall. It'd be an actual swearing-in ceremony at that point as police officers once they successfully complete the academy.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Knight.
Chief, what's the step one patrolman receive at this point in time? And would these individuals be paid that rate before they...
It's significantly higher. It's between 56 and 57,000. There's a 2% pay raise on June 30th, so I believe it's 57,000 and change as of June 30th this year is the step one for a patrol officer.
And presently, the individuals that have been selected as officers but have not completed the academy would be compensated at a rate based upon the $56,000?
If they are sworn in as police officers, yes.
But they
would
can't be sworn in
receive
as a
that
police officer until
they graduate the academy.
So at this point in time, there are no student officers, and an individual that was going through the academy wouldn't be compensated at all? Or would be compensated at a rate of at the $56,000?
They would be compensated at the higher rate right now.
While they're in the academy?
While they're in the academy, but if the ordinance were to pass, the ordinance change, the title would be student officer and it would be significantly lower.
And they are considered employees of the city of Medford while they are in the academy?
They are, but they are not covered by civil service. They are not covered by the unions until they successfully complete. They do not earn sick time. They do not earn injury in the line of duty. They'd have to be on workers' comp if they were injured while attending the academy. So they are a different category.
They wouldn't be considered a police officer. They'd fall into the civilian status?
Right.
Mr. President, I move for approval, and I'd ask that the 3 readings be waived.
Very good.
Thank you, President Del Russo.
Madam Vice President.
I think you answered one of my questions. So currently, or in the past, those attending the police academy have been paid, but they've been paid at this rate.
That's correct.
And you mentioned something about in 1995, there was an amendment by the state. At that time, it was when we should have accepted this.
Well, I know there was some discussion at the time, and almost any time there's something going on, there's always another issue that takes your eye off of the prize, and it was sidetracked at the earlier date. It didn't seem to be that important at that point in time.
Okay, so do we have anybody in the academy currently?
No, we do not, but we are in the process of screening candidates to place on the reserve list, and it is hoped that before the end of the year, we're supposed to be screening 7 candidates for the reserve list. We're hoping that, with the new fiscal budget in July, that we'd be able to maybe appoint 4 of those as permanent officers, but starting out as a student officer for an academy.
And how many retirees do we have this year, do you know?
4.
I know that was off topic. I just figured that was a question that I wanted to get answered. I agree that this is something that probably should have been done a while ago, so I think it's definitely time to do it. And I think a separate category for those that are in the academy is probably necessary, so you have my approval.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Councilor Penta.
Chief, you said this came out in 1995. That's almost 20 years ago.
Well, there was a law change, and at that time, it was a recommended practice. And many communities over the course of the past 20 years did change their ordinance to reflect that. We were just a little later than others in getting this to the table.
Now, this title of student officer, since we didn't have this before, what were these trainees called?
Policemen, patrolmen, actually, that was the title, patrolmen. I mean,
So
we try to call
you're-
them patrol officers, but the title in the city charter says patrolman.
So you're going to be going from the $56,000 or $57,000 range down to $40,000. So that's
That's the recommended figure. And the benefit for that would be, depending on where we are in the fiscal year and where our budget is during the fiscal year, it may mean that we could appoint maybe one or two additional because of the lower starting rate, which would allow us to budget appropriately at graduation time for bringing them up to step one.
Then let me ask you the next question. I don't know if you can answer this. You're calling it student officer. Is this going to have the same implication for the fire department?
I don't think so. They're not covered under the same regulation.
But do they have a law similar to this?
I believe that, I don't want to speak for the fire chief, and I could be totally wrong, and I'm probably going down the wrong road on this. But my understanding is that the fire department, the city could hire a firefighter and wait for an academy to open. And I believe they end up probably dispatching or working in the firehouse with some training at the initial step. You know, I could be totally wrong on that, but I believe the law is somewhat different for firefighters. Police officers are not allowed to exert any or exercise any police authority until they successfully complete the academy. Right now, we swear them in as patrolmen. God forbid, we could have a problem. Someone stops a motor vehicle and tries to effect an arrest, and they really don't have that power, but we're swearing them in as police officers.
So in essence, they're only trainees, correct?
That's it, student officer. That's why we're saying the language, so it'd be consistent with the statute, chapter 41.
But an officer doesn't give the same implication as a trainee. There's a difference.
No, once they're sworn in as a police officer upon graduation from the academy, they have full police powers.
So what's the period of time from the time you bring them on and they graduate the academy? What's the time period?
It's approximately 6 months.
So that's what these people are, student officers?
Student officers.
So why don't they call them student trainees, student police trainees?
Well, no, officer, I mean, the term officer, they're student officers, they're not police officers. That happens upon graduation.
Yeah, but couldn't a student officer mean anything?
Student officer, we're going with the language that's in the statute, 4196B.
That's the statute, that's the general law statute.
Chapter 41, section 96B refers to them as student officers.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, you could potentially have an academy-trained officer on the reserve list, correct?
Yes.
And if, I know you said in the past you would not call upon them for any duties, but if I guess under the general laws, you're allowed to.
But we'd have to provide them some degree of training locally before we could do that. Believe me, it's not my goal. It hasn't been my goal.
Right. But
if they're on a reserve list, we're not going to work them. If we have the opportunity to have an academy-trained person on the list that gets screened for the police department, I would be pleading with the mayor to appoint the person as a police officer, not place them on the reserve list, because we get the automatic benefit of being able to put them right to work.
Okay. So,
maybe an eight-week field training program, and they'd be able to go right to work.
so let's just say you had a call upon someone that was trained past the academy. They had some training, and they were on the reserve list, and you had a call upon them for whatever emergency circumstance. Would they get the starting salary of the $40,000, or would they get a police officer's starting salary?
I wouldn't be calling upon them. If
just say you did, Chief.
Because there isn't a category for payment for anyone that's on the reserve list right now.
Right, and that's my question.
They're not police officers until they're appointed as such. If they're appointed to
But
the reserve list.
the law allows you to use them, Chief. From my understanding is if they're on the list, you could use them.
I could use them if I put them through a training program. If I have an academy-trained individual that's already past the 800-hour curriculum and is sitting on the reserve list, I just repeat what I just said. I'd be pleading for him to fill an open void we have in the department right now.
So you don't know what salary they would get if you did use them?
I think
They
the
would
chief answered that it's not going to be.
You know, if I had to use them, I'm just thinking of...
This chief, you know, you've been around for a while, chief, and you may not be the chief in 10 years from now, and I'm just...
The worst situation, if we had, you know, a natural disaster or something, and we had to put people to work as, you know, watching for, you know, down wires, helping, you know, people evacuate a building, get them onto a bus. If we had to call upon them to bring them in for something like that, they'd probably be getting the starting rate of a police officer.
Okay, so they wouldn't fall under the student officer?
They wouldn't, unless they're attending the academy.
I'm specifically speaking about academy-trained
But if
officers.
they're already academy trained, you know, the goal would be to appoint them as police officers, not on the reserve list, but police officers, and put them through the field training program, which lasts around approximately eight weeks, maybe sometimes 10 weeks, depending on how quickly they grasp what goes on in the city. But if we had that benefit, and you know, in a couple of cases we've had that. You know, we've had academy-trained people appear on our list, and that's a benefit to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Marks. Council Caviello.
Thank you. Chief, with all the construction projects going around, would these gentlemen be, these officers be available for details, or?
Not based on the ordinance change that's here tonight, no. And the reserve officers, we would not be utilizing them for details. Absolutely not.
Now, we've talked about miles of construction going on in the city. Where are we going to get all the officers to cover all these details?
Well, if we're able to hire more people, we'll be able to cover everything. But we have good working agreements with the surrounding communities, state police. We'll try to fill as many as we can. We can never guarantee. I mean, I think we've been very fortunate with the number of details that have been out there and the officers' response to crimes in progress. It's really been a benefit to us with the work that's been going on.
I see the officers out there every day, but you know, like I say, now you can have another 3-mile project. You can have the bridge project going on at the same time. You're going to cut yourself thin, and I'm sure these other cities must be thin on officers too.
Every community around us are calling every day, so everyone's exhausting their list pretty early in the day for detail work that's out there. But so far, we've been able to manage pretty well. There have been some details that have gone uncovered, but it's done on a priority list. What's a low priority, what's a higher priority, and the higher priority details are filled first. I mean, there's a lot of work going on. There's work on Mystic Avenue that's going on now. The ramps have been done on Route 16, and Route 16 has been resurfaced on the overnight, so it's fluctuated daytime work and nighttime work, so that's been a benefit there.
Thank you.
Thank you. So on the motion of approval by Councilor Knight with the request to waive 3 readings, all those in favor? All those opposed? Carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you very much.
We're going to do that right now. 15484, dear Mr. President and councilors, I respectfully request and recommend that your honorable body approve of the following amendments to revised ordinances entitled Compensation Plan and Leave Ordinances, Chapter 66, Personnel. City of Medford, amendment to revised ordinances, Compensation Plan and Leave Ordinances, Chapter 66, Personnel, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Medford in Chapter 66 entitled Personnel, Article 2 entitled Classification and Compensation Plans, Sections 66.32, miscellaneous Personnel section, be amended to add the following lines, title, traffic supervisors, and this is over consecutive years at June 30th, 2016, 17, and 18, 2% increase to the monthly payment, bringing it up to $916.44, $934.77, $953.46. This amendment is requested due to the recently negotiated agreement with the Medford School Traffic Patrol Supervisors Union, Local 1599, AFSCME. The contract will expire on June 30th, 2018. Councilor Caviello?
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry. I lost my thought there.
Chief, if you would explain this to us, please.
As you can see, the traffic supervisors recently negotiated their contract with the city. They're entitled to a 2% pay increase on the last day of each of the fiscal years. As you know, we have 25 posts that are staffed every day. We have 21 full-time traffic supervisors. We have 4 that have been pretty much permanent reserves who soon will be moved up to permanent to fill the vacancies, but they have been working posts on a consistent, steady basis pretty much since the start of the school year, and then some of them began almost full-time as of after the December vacation. So I think this council has supported them forever in the past. They're a good group, they work hard, very little problem, and I can tell you right now, the parents and the children love them, and they perform a great service for the city.
Thank you. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Chief, could you elaborate a little bit on the training programs that a traffic supervisor has to go through before they're appointed?
Well, it starts out with the application process. They fill out an application for the position here at City Hall. I believe it's room 204. The application is then forwarded to the police station to my attention. We do a form. Once we know that we have to appoint some people, we send out a letter to each of them asking if they're still interested in applying for the position. And if so, we have a waiver of rights so that they'll sign off so that we can actually do a query check on them, do a thorough background check on them, check with employers, check with neighbors. And then beyond that, once they respond, those that successfully pass that portion of it, the names are passed off to our traffic unit. Sergeant Carroll calls them in for an interview. He does that in conjunction with Officer Brooks, and those that pass the interview level, their names get sent back up to me, and then I send a letter over to the mayor requesting that they be appointed as reserve part-time traffic supervisors to fill vacancies that occur on a day-to-day, monthly, or for the year basis. And once they serve well in that capacity, and if a permanent vacancy becomes available, then again, I'll send the letter to the mayor requesting the most senior reserve be appointed to that vacancy. And one of the good things in this contract that was negotiated and actually was brought forward by the traffic supervisors themselves, which is a benefit to the city. If someone is appointed as a permanent traffic supervisor for that first 6-month period, if they do not perform properly or do not perform well, they can be removed. And that came from the body.
So once they get appointed, is there any training in terms of best practices? What's
Well,
the
there
safest?
is training.
10 kids on the corner before you
Sergeant
cross?
Carroll and members of his traffic unit take them out, give them some actual hands-on training, work them with a senior traffic supervisor. The president of the Traffic Supervisors Union works with them as well. So there is some training. It's not a great deal, but it depends on their level when they're monitored out there on the street, you know, how well they're doing. And if it looks like someone needs more assistance, that's provided to them so that they can feel comfortable about it.
And lastly, Chief, have there been any incidents of any accidents, any type of traffic supervisor being hit by a vehicle or a child being hit by a vehicle or a traffic supervisor?
Not recently. There's been a lot of close calls. I think sometimes what they face the most of is some abuse by the motorists.
Yeah.
People going by and giving them a lot of grief, but just no one wants to be stopped. Right. And you know, they're the ones that stand out in front and they make sure the cars are stopped before they allow the children to cross.
So that the actual line of reporting is straight up the ladder to Sergeant Carroll?
Right,
And
that's
then
correct.
above
They're
Sergeant Carroll to you?
considered part of the traffic unit.
Okay, excellent. Move for approval, Mr. President.
Move approval by Councilor Knight. Councilor Marks.
Thanks, Chief. What are the current numbers in the reserves right now?
Well, we have 4 that are actually working full-time posts, so they're reserves, but they're not available for other assignments because they're filling right now open assignments.
Long-term, Chief?
Long-term. And they hopefully shortly will be appointed permanent in that post. We have one traffic supervisor, reserve traffic supervisor right now that bounces around to the openings, the day-to-day openings. Other times, and the majority of times, if we go beyond that one, it's all police officers filling them during those time frames.
Right.
But we have right now a list of about 8 people that are being screened, and they're all recent applicants, so that's good. Many times in the past, we were screening applicants that had applied maybe a year and a half prior, and they already found other jobs, so we're kind of spinning our wheels. But right now, we're pretty much up to date with the most recent applicants. So hopefully they'll screen out well and they'll be appointed.
Okay, and we've had this discussion before, and just leading to Councilor Knight's point about any incidences that happen. And I've talked to a number of the traffic crossing guards, and road rage is throughout the community. And they're our first line of defense. And I've witnessed it when cars actually will not stop for them.
Right.
And I mentioned to you, Chief, that I know most people carry cells now, but it would be great for them to have a direct line of communication via the walkie-talkie like the police have on a dialed station, that they can report something immediately, report a license plate, or something happened, God forbid a child gets struck. You know, that may be the best and quickest line of communication, and I don't understand, you know, why we can't arm these traffic. Talk about having another set of eyes, like you mentioned, about details, having police on the street, and God forbid something happens, they're right there. Why not arm another 15 or 16 people with a walkie-talkie that's directly right to the station that can report things?
Well, we're looking at that right now, and actually the radios that were replaced probably close to 2 years ago now, we still have those radios. They've been tested, they still work. We just have to modify the channels, the number of channels that are on there, and probably just keep it local on the Medford channel, wipe out the other channels, and then provide some training on how to use the radio. So the hope would be, I know it's probably not soon enough, but the hope would be that we'd have these in the field by September when school opens.
That's great, Chief.
So, I mean,
That's good news.
we just want to make sure that these radios work. Right now, they're sitting in a box. They still work. They're not really good enough to be used on, 24-hour day-to-day patrol, but it should serve a purpose to fill that void, and that's something I know that you've mentioned numerous times in the past. So
only because they've mentioned it to me, Chief, saying they'd like to have a direct line of communication, and it's not just to say, hey, what's the weather down there? It's to report stuff in a time of emergency.
I think we're in total agreement on that.
Thanks, Chief. That's good news.
So on the motion of Councilor Knight for approval, seconded by Councilor Marks, all those in favor?
Aye.
And so motioned to waive the 3 readings in addition. All those in favor? All those opposed? Congratulations to the traffic supervisors.
Thank you.
And Chief, thank you for your presence here tonight and for your leadership.
I appreciate that. I will stay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on the motion of Councilor Camuso to resort back to the regular order of business, all those in favor?
Chief,
all those opposed?
I think the Chief was waiting around.
So
we take it out of order, one of the papers?
What paper do you want? We're back in the regular order of business. So motion by Councilor Penta to take item number 15 of 478 out of order. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Offered by Councilor Penta. Be it resolved that the ongoing parking ticket actions of the out-of-state Republic Parking Company be discussed. Councilor Penta.
Thank you. Chief, I'm glad that you're here, because the first thing I want to talk about is something that I believe came up at your March meeting. We'll start with this group of people. You have folks that have purchased permit stickers to park in the Governor's Ave parking lot who are business merchants. Okay? And these merchants, two in particular, on any particular day, have been unable to go into the Governor's Ave parking lot to find a spot. And by not being able to find a spot, the gentleman who supposedly is in the parking lot over there turned around and told them it's okay for them to park on the street on Governor's Avenue. Now, there's one particular person who's received 4 tickets since Saturday in the amount of $100, 4 $25 tickets. That's number one. I believe at the March meeting they come up to you and they asked you about this as it relates to, and I believe that you indicated to them, that I'm paraphrasing, that you would be okay to park on Governor's Avenue if there were no spots because you have a permit parking sticker and the cars should be able to pick it up. That's number one. Number two, there's a gentleman who parked his car, put the money in the meter, and the expiration of the meter was at 1:44. He got a ticket, Chief, at 1:04, for which the expiration wasn't even anywhere near it. The gentleman who gave him the ticket turned around and says, if you don't like it, you know what to do, appeal. The next issue is a resident who lives on Governor's Avenue. A resident who lives on Governor's Avenue. And this resident got a ticket after 10 o'clock at night by the bounty hunters that this city has hired to go out there and give tickets to. Absolutely wrong, Chief. Question then was asked on this particular individual, parking on the street, resident parking. They told her she had to move her car every 2 hours. And by moving her car every 2 hours brings it up to midnight, and this woman is just upset. Next one is in Medford Square, behind the UPS store. Lady goes out there, puts money in the meter, which is good until 10:22. The gentleman comes up to her at 10:11, starts to give her a ticket, and she says to him, what are you doing? You know, he says, well, listen, don't worry about it. I can take it back if you get a ticket. He didn't give her the ticket because he said, she said to him, what are you doing? Chief, you have a lady in Medford Square who is a registered hairdresser who has in excess of 250 signatures because this is killing her business in the square. This is not Elsie, but the other end of the square. This is on Salem Street. This thing with Republic has not gotten any better. 2 complaints from individuals who have out-of-state plates that come into Medford Square. They try to put their plate number in, and it doesn't take. They don't know what to do. They go into the store, and they come out, and they get a ticket. This is not making any sense. These things were supposed to be resolved. On High Street, you and I had this conversation. I have the ticket, I have the pictures in my bag. They still have the kiosk in front of a 2-family residential house for which people still try to put money in the meter thinking that they're supposed to whatchamacallit, pay to park there. That was one of the very first ones they said they were going to remove as soon as the weather got better, as soon as the snowstorm ended. And we could just go on and on with the telephone calls relative to the people saying they try to put money into the machine. One lady put a quarter in the machine, she got 4 quarters back. But she didn't get her ticket. She got a ticket that had a different license plate number on it. So, unfortunately, or good for her, she didn't get a ticket because she didn't get the right receipt that went to her number plate. This craziness has got to stop. I mean, these people that are giving out the tickets, it's a combination of them not knowing what they're doing. You can't tell someone if you don't like it, appeal it. You can't go up to somebody, and I think it even reflects upon Councilor Carviallo on one particular day near CVS. They were just waiting to put a ticket in his car. I mean, they're all here. I'm not making this stuff up. And I think it's just wrong. But when it's so blatant, giving a guy a ticket, when he has until 1:44 and they give him a ticket 1:04, well, if you don't like it, appeal it. I mean, how do you do this? How do you say it's okay?
I certainly don't agree with that.
No, how do you do this?
You had 2 of those that were similar. You had the 1011 in the UPS store, and you had the 104 on a meter. So
then you have the one on Governor's Avenue. At 10:07 a.m., she put a quarter in the meter at 10:07 a.m. She ran into the UPS store, came out at 10:11, and the guy was sitting there waiting to give her a ticket, and the ticket expires at 10:22. It's wrong. This is wrong, Chief. This is not what the people asked for. This is not what the city expected from it. They've had more than enough time to get their act together. I just think it's wrong.
Can I address a few of these?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, the first one, the Governor's Ave lot. Everyone has been told that in the lot, if you have a business permit, park against the wall, which abuts 15 Governor's Ave. That's the only spot for business permits. I never told anyone that if you have a business permit, you can park on Governor's Ave. I have told them they can park on Governor's Ave up by Terrace Road, which is allowed, which allows for business permit.
But that's Governor's Ave.
But not in the lower end of Governor's Ave.
No, that's Governor's Ave. That's where they park.
But if they go up there by the wall,
Yeah,
by the Terrace
4
Road
of them.
wall, they can park up there as long as they're registered with the business permit. I think part of the bigger problem that we have too is we're not using permits. With the virtual permit, their plate number is registered with the company, and there's no decal being given to the person who purchased. They registered their vehicle, their plate number. So that's a problem.
It should be a problem, because the fact of the matter is, if the city is giving out too many tickets, or too many permits, and there's more permits that are allowed in the parking lot, how do you blame the person that bought the permit, believing that they could use the parking lot, but now have to go up on Governor's Avenue to find a spot?
Everyone was told, and they could only use the back wall for business permits.
But you know yourself,
the middle section is 3 hours.
But the
parallel parking behind the stores it ranges from 15 minutes, I believe, 30 minutes, and an hour.
It's 15, 30, 1 hour, and then 2 hours. Right. But these people pay the $100 for their parking permit, okay? They shouldn't be getting a ticket.
It doesn't guarantee them a spot, though.
It doesn't have to, but they shouldn't be guaranteed getting a ticket either if they can't find a spot.
Not if they're not, as long as they're not in violation. There are spots, though. There are spots. They may have to hike a bit, but there are spots. If they're going to be in a business all day long, they should park the furthest point away, because they don't need their car all day long.
Well, what
they
about
shouldn't be parked right there. So, I'm agreeable with the wall. That's historic. They have the business permit along that wall. We have the Governor's Ave Terrace Road wall for the business permits. We have business permits in this end of the square as well. They can use the Shell parking lot during the daytime.
Chief, what do you do if somebody's handicapped, they have a business permit parking, they have to go out and then they come back?
If they're handicapped
okay?
and they want to display their handicap placard, they could park all day.
Well, you know as well as I that
spot.
they've given out tickets to people that have a handicap placard, okay? These people are pretty rude as to what they're doing, and they're only out there to make money. Okay. They don't care about the simple little guy who's just trying to negotiate his day's life, trying to spend 25 or 50 cents in a parking lot to do their business. That's wrong.
Okay. Can I go down this list?
Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Okay, the meters that we talked about, the 1:44 p.m. and then 1:04, there's no excuse for that. That's been a problem. People have received tickets. I believe Councilor Camuso even received, or his wife received a ticket early on in the program when she still had time on the meter, and that's not right, and that should have been corrected. And I am told by Republic that Westcor, the company who installed these machines, came out and tested every single machine, every single kiosk. There's 85 of them that they tested them for accuracy. Supposedly they modified some of them that they found having a problem. So they've done some preventive maintenance. It's probably time for them to come out again.
How can they test them for accuracy if I put money in a machine and I get somebody else's receipt?
Well,
how does that work?
You might have got the receipt from the person before you. I know that there was some difficulty getting the receipt out of the slot. So I'm only making an assumption that that's the case. The resident on Governor's Avenue, she was at our traffic commission meeting last month, earlier this month, I should say. And that ticket was taken care of right there because we had a representative from Republic at the meeting. And he was told in no uncertain terms that the parking restriction, even though it says 2-hour parking, like all the other on-street parking, it's only until 6 p.m. So they could park from 6 p.m. until 8 a.m. the next morning and not be subject to ticketing.
And she got a ticket.
Governor's Avenue is not a permit parking street.
And she got a ticket at 10 p.m.
Right.
So what are they doing out at 10 o'clock at night? Tell me.
They took that ticket away.
But what are they doing out at 10 o'clock at night, giving people heart attacks over a stupid ticket?
Because the signs on Governor's Avenue did not have a time limit on them.
Chief.
It said 2 hours, but didn't say a beginning time and an end time.
Do you know what the contract says about all of this? These people are supposed to be trained, they're supposed to know the streets that they give the tickets on, and they were supposed to have a course in this, okay? And they acknowledged, Mr. Nash, when he acknowledged that they hadn't done it, okay? And we're still dealing with the same problems from a contract signed on October 10th, 2014. This makes no sense at all. This is wrong. People should not even have to go and have a ticket waived. They shouldn't even have to go to give you a call. They shouldn't have to go to a traffic. They shouldn't have to be inconvenienced for this, because these people should know what they're doing. And they're not. They're causing a hardship to people.
We spoke about the UPS store. It's the same thing with they still had time on the meter, and
Yeah.
they were about to get a ticket. The hairdresser in the square, I know she generated a petition.
She has over 200 of them.
But, you know, quite honestly, she's sandwiched in between the 15-minute spots that are in front of Modern Pastry and pretty much the restricted spots at Dunkin' Donuts. I would think that, and I know, and I've spoken with the lady, I know that she's having problems with patrons because now there's enforcement. Even if we enforce the time limits on the signs without even the meters, she would have a problem with her clientele. I don't know what she did before, because there was never a spot to park on Salem Street from Ashland Street to the center of the square. Never, absolutely never a spot. They were full at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know where her customers parked before this, but Salem Street is open now. The only thing I will grant you is that many of the patrons probably need more than 2 hours in the hairdressing shop. But I have to say that there's much more parking available. They have to cross the street. She is in between all the 15-minute spots right there. She never was able to have anyone park right in front of her shop.
But the difference between what you're talking about, the patrons that she had before these crazy kiosk stuff came in, maybe she got a 2 or 3 hour person, and you know, and she wasn't losing these 1 or 2 customers, whatever they might be. This past week I was in West Medford, and I saw a lady walk out of the hairdresser across the street with the curlers in her hair. She was having a foil to run out to go in there and to put the money in the meter, okay, which made no sense at all, because I thought the parking lots were going to be 3 hours. The signs still have not been changed.
They are.
What are they waiting for?
The West Medford lot's supposed to be
all
reconfigured.
All the lots are supposed to be 3 hours.
Yes, they are.
So how do they turn around and give people tickets? Tell me.
The kiosks, well, whatever meters are in the lots right now supposedly have been programmed
This is
for
wrong.
3 hours.
You know, I'm going to just say, if I were the mayor, you know, this would be the second thing in this building to go. That would be the second contract of the city to go. I won't tell you what the first one is, but that's the second one.
It's probably mine, right?
Councilor Knight.
Madam President, thank you very much. Chief, now that the snow is gone, all 10 feet of it, we had a program that Republic was willing to participate in, and I believe they called it their ambassador program. And I think it might make sense to get them out there now, that people are actually walking around in the streets as opposed to, you know, running to their car, running from their car, and trying to get into the stores as fast as they can to keep out of the elements. So I'm wondering, Chief, if that's something that the Traffic Commission would be interested in maybe requesting?
That has been mentioned to them several times since the snow has gone, and we're hoping that they will do that. They're being told basically that they have to do that. We have to reacquaint people with the kiosks, and they need to be testing the machines to make sure that they're working. I think by and large, though, I have to say the office staff up there have been very good. Any times that we've had any problems, we've been able to call Pam in the office, and she's been very receptive. Patrick, who is the local person in charge of the operation, he has been good. I know that, you know, we need to reach Dan Nash or maybe people above him to take them to task for some of these things that are just continuous, that are ongoing.
Chief, when you said from Ashland Street down to, you know, the foot of the square, you'd never find a parking spot over there.
Before the meters.
Before the meters, you're
before the
absolutely right.
enforcement.
And, you know, the only time that I think I could ever find a spot was when Matty and Sonia was working the shift before he retired down there, because he was very vigilant in his efforts to ensure that the parking regulations were abided by. And we're having a lot of problems with the current officers working for Republic in their unfamiliarity with what spots should be enforced in what fashion. Has there been any consideration given to maybe giving some retired officers who worked in the traffic division the opportunity to maybe come forward and assist in showing these people the ropes and how it's done, maybe for a per diem or something like that, to get the program off the ground and running smoothly? Because I think we can all agree that there have been a lot of bumps in the road, and maybe this is just one of the ways that we can solve some of the problems that we're facing.
It's something worth looking at. You know, that'd be a call that someone else will have to make, but I know that once school is out, we plan on having the day shift traffic officers work with them a little closer and, pretty much, itemize, where the problems are and see if we can correct them. I'm hoping that people have been hearing an improvement on permit parking streets. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that you're hearing from the constituents that there has been some improvement on the enforcement there and the consideration for the neighborhood as opposed to just street by street, that at least giving, if someone's on Berwick, they could park on Yale.
Yeah.
That's
been very helpful from the constituents.
I think that from the police department end, I think some of the calls that we used to get have dropped off for the permit parking. I'm just not sure if they've dropped off because people are just totally frustrated or whatever, but I still believe that we have to go forward with the actual decal on the car, on the vehicle for the permits.
Another thing, Chief, if Republic isn't so interested in doing their ambassador program, and when school gets out, we are going to have some of our traffic division officers helping out. Maybe it might make sense to allow our traffic supervisors to maybe participate in the ambassadorship program as well. They're already city employees. They're already working for the traffic division. So maybe it makes sense to train them on the machines as well and give them an opportunity to maybe help out and make this work a little smoother.
Thank you.
President?
Council Penta.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
on page, under operator employees standards, on page 13 of the contract, it says the operator shall be solely responsible for the complete training of all its parking enforcement personnel and will maintain training records as prescribed by law or policy as appropriate. This training will include, but not be limited to, customer service, conflict management, civil rights law, disability and accessibility laws and procedures, municipal ordinances pertaining to parking enforcement, job safety included but not limited to OSHA standards. Can you tell me that they follow this contract proviso?
I know that about a month ago, maybe a little more than a month ago, they did have someone from their human relations unit, the corporate office, come in and do a training for the personnel.
This was
That's what
supposed to be.
I was told by Dan Nash.
This was supposed to be in October before this contract. This is what the contract says, and this is now what, May?
I don't know. Well, I know there's been some changes in staff since the beginning.
But before you hire someone, don't you train them? Before you get a police officer, we just had a student school for them tonight, didn't we?
Right.
Okay, you didn't hire them off the street to come in here and aggravate the people and be bounty hunter number 1 or 2 or 3 because you collect the most amount of money. This is wrong, dead wrong. And again, as I said to you before, I like you, you're my friend. This is not your job. This was the mayor's job. You should not be doing this.
But I'm here to answer the questions.
I understand that, and I appreciate it, okay?
It's all under the same umbrella. I mean, it's all about public safety, parking and traffic falls to the police department.
Well, maybe we should just abolish it, like I said, and have a nice little, like it was before, start off with a small revenue enforcement program, see how it works, see if that leads into maybe meters if you want to put the quarters in the future, which people can understand, not this craziness. And tell me something, if I'm out of state and I put money in the meter and it doesn't take my receipt, it doesn't take my license, why should I be subject to a ticket because I'm out of state? How does this work?
I have to check that. I don't have an answer to that.
Well, that's the problem here, and that's another way to juice somebody out of $25.
Thank you. We do have a motion by Council, is it an amendment by Councilor Knight? Okay, no amendment. Councilor Marks.
Thank you. Chief, a few weeks ago I put something on the agenda for the Traffic Commission. I don't know if you got it yet, but Plaisted Road, I think you're familiar, from Irving Street all the way up to Century Street, on the right-hand side.
In front of the homes.
In front of the homes. That permit parking doesn't take effect until 10 or 11?
No, it's permit parking all day.
Are you sure?
On Plaisted Road, from Irving Street all the way up to just about Century.
If you could check into that.
And I did right after that. That is, it's all day. There used to be permit parking from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. on the park side and also on Century Street Extension going way back. That was something passed in the 70s. That had been rescinded a while ago. I mean, that a long time ago.
So nothing on Plaisted Road then on the house side?
On the house side, it's permit parking all day. All day,
okay.
24/7.
Okay.
I'll check it again. But
check it again, because I think...
But I believe it stops at Century. From Irving Street up to Century, and after Century, there's no restriction.
No, I am talking from Irving Street up to Century, that area on the house side.
But I believe it's
24/7. Okay, thank you.
Not just 11 to 7.
Okay.
But we used to, in all over the city, around all of the parks and playgrounds, it used to be 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. because back in the day when we had large number of children congregating at night, that was a tool to be able to tag their vehicles that were parked there when they were in the wooded part of the parks. So, but that's been rescinded years ago. When I heard that, there might be a stray sign still out there, but I'm not sure.
Do you know if they're enforcing the lot behind the cleaners in the hillside?
I don't believe they are. I haven't seen any tickets issued there. I mean, I frequent that quite a bit, and I have yet to see any enforcement there.
You see a lot of out-of-state plates there for hours on end.
Right.
So you may want to check that out too.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I may, through the chair, I too received calls with regards to the Medford Square business permit issue. The businesses feel that there's not enough spots. I know you say there are. Condon Shell, you're saying, should be the backup?
Yes. I mean, depending on the location in the square. I mean, if they can figure it out. I mean, this little lot over here by 64 Salem Street, the electric company, it's amazing how full that is at 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning now, and that used to be empty. Yeah.
And one question on that, the business permit, if somebody needs to change a car, can they swap plates for a day, call the office?
I guess that's the benefit for them to register their plate number with the company. It's easier. Before, if you have just the decal,
yeah.
You know, if your car was in the shop and you had a rental for the day, you faced a problem. Now they can just call up and say, I'm using this car today, and give them the plate number. Hopefully everything jives on that end and they can do it.
I've had 2 complaints from business owners that they've called the office, Republic office, tried to switch the plate numbers for the day because they had to switch cars, and they say they're unable to do that. So if we could just check with Republic on that. One was today and one was last week.
Okay.
And the business owners are being told that they can't swap plates on the business permit. So.
No, I know that was one of the selling points in the beginning, because many times something happens and you can't take the car that's registered, and you have to use a rental or something. And
if you could ask that question, because I know tickets were issued in those 2 instances, even though the business owner called Republic, asked to switch the plate. They said she couldn't, and then she got tickets. So I can talk to you after who that is.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Councilor Camuso.
Thank you. You know, with the parking complaints and businesses claiming that there's not enough spots, I mean, this is probably an appropriate time to start looking at the garage again in Medford Square. The money is set aside. State Rep. Donato has it in the bond bill, and I think that this is the appropriate time to actually start talking about it again. There is a need for longer-term business parking within the square. So I think the administration should take it under consideration, at least at this point, because the business owners that are complaining about not having spots, if there are additional spots that are allocated for long-term parking, and as I said in the past, the administration, it was another one of those issues that they just never brought forward. They talked about it and this and that, and the council talked about it, but there has not been a proposal for the garage that's been before us for a vote for funding. And as I said, State Rep. Donato has worked tirelessly to get funding in the transportation bond bill for that specific purpose, as well as other money that was set aside by, I believe, the previous administration.
Point of clarification, Council Penta.
The reason that money got into the bond bill is when the mayor knew that 3 members of the council weren't going to vote for it, he went to Representative Donato, who never came to us, to explain that they were putting that money into the bond bill. So there was no understanding of that money going in by any vote of this council, one way or the other.
Did I say that?
So, yes, you didn't say that.
I did not say that. All I said was, in the transportation bond bill, there is $3 million set aside. $8 million, Councilor Caviello said. I'm not exactly sure on the figure, but the bottom line is, I think, as one member of this council, there is a need for it, and we haven't had the opportunity to take a formal vote, whether we're for or against it. And as I said, I'm urging the administration to bring it forward and finally give the people of Medford Square, the neighbors, the business owners, an opportunity to come down here and be heard, as people were given the opportunity to come down in the Brooks Estates, the new science labs, and the list goes on and on and on. Chart the course, which was brought forward by the McGlynn administration, This was part of it originally, I believe, and it just never came to a vote. So I think that we owe it at least to the business owners to take a long, serious look at it. And unfortunately, the people are out there, the former garage was built under the old former government, where it was the city council and the city managers back in, I want to say the 80s. And I'm sure Mayor McGlynn still has the plaque from the garage when it fell down with the names on it. But with that being said, I think it's long overdue, and I, as one member of this council, do support it, and I would hope that he'd at least entertain it and give the people the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for answering our questions. Again, some questions resolved. Council Penta.
Chief, one last question, and the hours of operation have now been changed from 8 to 6,
That's correct.
Monday through Saturday.
Correct.
Can you tell me why the office is not open on a Saturday?
I don't know. I think they try to follow City Hall hours. I believe they're open
Well, City
late
Hall is
on-
not the parking clerk.
They're open late on Wednesday night.
It doesn't work that way. There are people that on Saturdays, the only day that they can make this appointment or see them or whatever it might be. This is not fair. It's another issue. If you can make a notation,
I would certainly
ask them
ask.
to be open on Saturday from 8 to 6, just like they are every other day. You know, if they're good enough to give out the tickets, they should be good enough to hear their complaints on the same days that they give out their tickets.
Madam President,
Council Camuso.
if I may too, I'd just like to go on record that I know there is some frustration by some of the members of the ticket enforcement unit, but there are several members of working for that company that have good, long-standing Medford families, Medford residents, and I think they're doing a fine and admirable job. You call that office, we all know who works up in the office, a Medford gal, and very friendly. Two Medford gals, I didn't know the other one. And then one of the enforcement officers is a Medford young man that grew up here in our community. So the ones that at least live in this community are taking pride in their work. And I just want the record to reflect that.
Yes, absolutely. Motion to receive and place on file, and hopefully Chief will get us, ask those questions for us, get us those answers. All those in favor? All those opposed? Paper passes.
Thank you.
Motion to revert back to
Could
regular.
I just ask one question? I'm sorry. I'm just curious. I know you have the ear for the public concerns and all the complaints, but I'm not hearing all the complaints on the parking that I did in the very beginning. I'm wondering, are you hearing anything positive? Because I've been hearing from some merchants that this is beginning to work.
I've been hearing some positive. I hear some positive.
It's obvious that we need to, round off the rough edges, but I just want to know what, are you hearing any of the good things? Because sometimes I think the silent majority is out there. No one likes someone to come up and put a ticket on their windshield. Whether you're a sworn police officer or you're a civilian, they don't want the ticket, so they're going to complain.
Council Camuso.
The one thing that's been unanimous amongst the people that I talk to is they all look forward to Sunday.
It's a day of rest.
I think, on a serious note though, we brought it up a few weeks ago, the holiday has to be straightened out, and it has to be a lot of public output, because there were people on Patriots Day, and you weren't here for the meeting, but people on Patriots Day were getting tickets. Now, I know the company did right by it, but it has to be unison. Is it the federal calendar, or is it the state calendar? I think it should be the state calendar, because how can you justify having City Hall closed and the schools closed, but still be able to get a ticket? And rubbish delivery doesn't get picked up, like Councilor Penta said.
No,
Should be all holidays on both schedules.
I think it was
Even better.
corrected. I think Ms. Burke gave them the list of holidays, and I think it was all of them.
Excellent.
I think it was,
Yes, all of them.
I'm not sure if Bunker Hill Day fit in that category,
But Bunker Hill
all
Day-
the others did.
Bunker Hill Day, though, City Hall's closed, so it should be closed.
I agree.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, motions, orders, and resolutions 15-470 offered by Councilor Caviello. Be resolved that the Medford City Council discuss the proposed appeal of 198-202 Harvard Street to change from a 3-family to a non-conforming 5-family in an already congested area with insufficient off-street parking. Councilor Caviello.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, As the Ball Square Station is getting closer to us, completion, people in that neighborhood are gonna start seeing more and more of these, conversions that are gonna wanna happen. Property is selling at record prices up there right now. South Medford is, and the real estate market is on fire, and, people are starting to cash out now. But I think that the time has come where I think we need to sit down, maybe with the appeals board or somebody, to discuss all these that are gonna come in. I mean, here's somebody that wants to go from a 3 to a 5 on Harvard Street. I mean, no, did the chief already leave?
Oh, yeah, he just.
Chief left already.
just stepped out.
But, I mean, there's barely enough parking for the 3-family there. Never mind, you're gonna add 4 more people, which might be 4 more cars, 5 more cars
At
there.
least.
In an area that just cannot handle any more cars or any more people. And I say, as these 2 families continue to sell, people are gonna wanna take the 2, make it a 3. 3 is gonna wanna go to a 4. I mean, Stearns Ave just sold for $890, a 2-family. To a person who works up at Tufts. It's only a matter of time before the gentleman's on it before the appeals board that's gonna wanna tear that down, or add it, make that a 5-family. So I say, I think the time has come where we need to send a message to the appeal boards, that next week, you better look hard and fast on these, because, they'll, as they say, as fast as they start coming, as the train gets closer, they're gonna come further, and once it gets over the College Ave, you're gonna see the hillside. I mean, can you fit another car on the hillside, or can you fit another apartment on the hillside? I mean, these people, I mean, listen, it's good for the, say, if you wanna cash out, it's good, but, we're fast losing our neighborhoods. There'll be no more neighborhoods, we'll be a city of transients. That's why people come in, students, and, I say, there's 5 generations of my family have been in this city. That won't be happening much the way that if this continues at this pace.
Would you like to make a recommendation to the Board of Appeals?
Yes, I plan on going to this meeting next week also during our, but
You want to make a recommendation?
I want to make a recommendation that they either maybe look at maybe some type of moratorium or some type of before they approve any more of these. Maybe we should be kept more in the loop on this.
Recommend that the Board of Appeals put a moratorium on until the matter is discussed with the City Council.
Yes.
Councilor Camuso.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of the sentiments of Councilor Caviello, but I also know there are a lot of 2 and 3 families that have significant amount of parking right on their own property, and this is a new way of life. People don't want the big homes anymore. They want to buy a smaller condominium. So I just think the Board of Appeals has to look at each individual cases, similar to a few years ago when the Meadow Glen Mall sign came up. And I'm not for those big signs, but in certain areas, I think they're actually good and they bring business. But to tell someone that there's a moratorium in place, and if they have 7,500 square feet and they can fit the appropriate parking and...
Maybe moratorium might be the wrong word, but at least we look at the rules that go with the granting of these changes.
But a lot of times, the conversions, I think the conversions and the Board of Appeals are 2 separate things. A lot of times, you don't even have to go to the Board of Appeals to convert to, if you already own a 2-family, it's more or less just going to the building department and condoizing it, and you have to have...
Converting 2 to 2.
2 to 2.
2 to 2, but,
5.
I mean, this is going to, 2 is going to go to 3, 3 is going to go to 4. I mean...
But some of them...
A 3-family is could have 6 cars in there.
But I understand that, but also, there are some buildings throughout our community that are currently zoned for more than the units that they have. They may have a zoning for a 6-family. At the end of Irving Street, at the corner of Irving and Plaisted, you got 6 or 7 units in that building. Now, is it appropriate? But it's conforming use. It's a conforming use, and I agree with you that we have to actually take a long, hard look at it, but I think we have to leave it in the Board of Appeals' hands, and they have to look at it individually, because there are certain lots and properties within the community that, take a blighted area, for instance. You'd rather have maybe a 3 or 4 family than a 1 family that's run as a rental place. I just think the Board of Appeals right now is in a total, it's the only avenue where they can go, and look at it realistically too. They are very, I'd say that they deny more than they approve developments and conversions in the city. I mean, I'd like to know the statistics on it too, because how many of these properties have actually made it to the Board of Appeals and were approved?
I don't know.
So, I mean, that's something that I'd like to know.
Councilor Penta.
I agree somewhat with Councilor Camuso, but, you know, the Board of Appeals has a statutory autonomy, so to speak, to make their own decisions. But the council has a right to interject what its concerns might be in a particular neighborhood or a particular section. We can jump over to another location. It's on Winthrop Street, right opposite the gas station, and where across the street they want to put 11 houses into a 4-home unit area over there. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it, whatever it might be. So that's a true encroachment in a particular neighborhood. And if the residents don't want it, or they're not even aware of it because they just don't either have the time to be bothered with it or to be involved with it, I mean, you know, we do have a responsibility if something we feel needs to be communicated to any particular board. You know, one of the benefits of getting all these notices when these board meetings are, we see what the agendas might be, and some of these agendas have worked out for the purposes of having a council go to them and find out what's going on or express their interest. Now, I know Councilor Caviello, this won't be the first time that he would have an interest at the Board of Appeals, because, and rightfully so, he had an interest in a piece of property in the West Medford area where the legitimacy of why the building was being sold and what was going to be proposed to be put there was not one and the same. And because of his interaction at the board and with the neighborhood, it helped resolve the problem. So what was going to originally go up and what became after the fact did not really come to fruition. And this might be a combination of the same thing. I don't think anybody should be dissuaded from going to any meeting, City Council, Board of Appeals, Public Health, Water and Sewer Commission meeting, whatever it might be, because if you have your opinion, what difference does it make if you're an elected official or not? And if you're going as an elected official expressing your opinion, but more importantly, people have expressed their concern to you, and that's the reason why you're going, well, to some degree that adds some weight, I would assume, at any particular meeting. That's what the board members are there for, to listen to all the opinions that people might have. While they might be autonomous to make their own decision, they're not precluded from listening to other people's decisions. Or strike that. They should not be precluded from listening to other people's decisions. And that's the reason why we're elected, to listen to the people, hear what they have to say, go to a meeting if we want to go, and express our concerns. So I agree with you, Councilor Caviello. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to the meeting, expressing your opinion, even if it's contrary to all 3 members of the board. At least you were there to say what you felt.
Councilor Caviello, unless you
No,
have a point
I just think it's time that we start protecting the integrity of our neighborhoods, because otherwise they're going to cease to become neighborhoods. Just going to become landing spots that people just move in and out.
Councilor Knight.
Madam President, thank you very much, and thank you, Councilor Caviello, for bringing this matter forward. Although I understand your concerns, I do feel as though we need to really respect the autonomy of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and their process should be undue from political interference and influence. With that being said, I think that Councilor Caviello raises some great concerns about the situation that's going on there. However, I think the proper course of action for this council to take would be to take a look at the current zoning ordinances and then maybe make recommendations to revise the current existing zoning ordinances that governs their operations, as opposed to making recommendations to them that fall well within their scope and purview, Madam President.
Jean Martin, 10 Cumming Street, thank you. And I'd like to agree with Mr. Carviello. I mean, if you go to South Medford, they are crowded, and maybe the answer is what Mr. Knight is saying is maybe I don't understand the process, but I do agree with Mr. Carviello's line of thought, which is that the more crowded you become, the more cars on the street, The more stress it puts on the fire department, on the teachers, on the schools. You have more people, more people that aren't related. These two-family houses that are getting rented have 3 non-relatives living in 3 different bedrooms. They have 3 different cars per unit. It just causes a lot of congestion, and I absolutely agree. But maybe the right way to approach it is what Mr. Knight is saying, is to go but the federal laws came in under 40B, and they get away with stuff anyway. So, you know, the towers, the Mystic Valley Towers came in under 40B. You had the 40B over there. And when 40B came in, the towers, it was regulated very strongly for 30 years. Once they got through their contract, now it's open to the general public, and they have often three non-related people living in the same apartment. And so, you know, you have a lot of, and they're like roommates to each other. They're not families. Not that in some areas that's okay, they can absorb it. But certainly in certain parts of the city, there's a saturation point at which it becomes a problem. And so I just want to make people aware of that. If you're living in North Medford and you have a couple of houses that, you know, are party central, that's okay because it can be absorbed. But if you have a couple of houses that are party central in South Medford, it's not going to be absorbed because there's already enough congestion. The roads are more congested, the cars make an impact. And I'd just like to say that it puts a stress on the city, so it is a city issue. And also, every week I get a letter in the mail from a retailer, a real estate person ready to sell my house. I mean, it is hot. The market is hot. And I know that some people would love for me to move out of the city, but that's another story. I'm just kidding. Huh? Oh, thank you. Yeah, keeping you guys as honest as I can. But anyway, seriously, the market is hot, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have some kind of cap. How we come about that, how we come to that conclusion on how to put controls on that is up for debate. But the sentiment that he's talking about, I'm absolutely positive with. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. As someone who lives in close proximity to the property in question, I have grave concerns for that as well. And I'm intimately associated with the congestion we experience in South Medford. I'm also intimately aware of so much of the change that's happened there and the changing real estate market there. And the possibility that people of moderate to low income will find it difficult to live in that neighborhood, those people who are most in need of use of public transportation. That being said, I'm unclear as to what obligation or restrictions are upon us as councilors when we speak before these boards, and I know that we have to be clear to it and clear about it before we do that. Furthermore, I would want to be very respectful towards the autonomy of that board in particular, which prides itself and by its constitution ought to be free from inappropriate influence and encumbrance. I'm not saying that your motion, Councilor Caraviello, is anyway an encumbrance, but until I am clear on what it is, because for some reason I have in the back of my head from doing those tedious ethics examinations we have to do, that really the examples that they give us, the case studies that they give us to complete really aren't always that clear either. There seems to be something there that when we appear as before a board, that there's something attached to that.
That's right. As an elected official, I can go to any meeting. I can go there as a regular citizen. I don't think I'm putting any undue influence on them. I mean, it's my right to protect the integrity of that neighborhood. I mean, the term affordable housing over there is going to be non-existent. So I don't think I'm going to say anything. No one's threatening the board. I'm entitled to my opinion as an elected official of the city. I mean, I've gone to those meetings before, and I have the right to speak my opinion as an ordinary citizen. I've gone to many board meetings, and that's right. Give my name and address for the record.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Caviello for offering this resolution. I think merely what the council is stating, and I won't speak for him, is he sees the neighborhoods and the very fabric of what makes up our individual neighborhoods being changed. And clearly, the market in the city of Medford has changed over the last several years, and I think we as a council have to get ahead of the curve. And we are the legislative body in this community and in charge of zoning, that may be the appropriate place for this to appear. So I support this wholeheartedly. I also think we have to take one step further and look at illegal apartments in the community. I think there are more illegal apartments in this city than what we realize. And if you want to talk about having more cars on the street and so forth, and people living in situations that may be dangerous because they fall under the radar of certain ordinances and state laws and so forth, that to me is an issue that has to be examined also. So I think it's about time that the zoning board, actually not the zoning board, the zoning subcommittee get together and start discussing some of these issues, Madam President. So if my council colleague wouldn't mind, I think that may be the appropriate first step of this, to refer this to the zoning subcommittee for further action, Madam President.
Madam President, a few weeks ago, we had a little bit of a discussion on the council floor, but firstly, I want to get back to Council Caviello's resolution as it relates to the fabric of the neighborhood, as Council Marks has alluded to. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to any Board of Appeals. I've been there many times through the years. I've been to many boards during the courses of the year. I've gone and spoken as a citizen and as an elected official, and 90% of the time when I've gone, I've been recognized as an elected official in the city, but coming to speak on the matter whether I was pro or con. So what makes that any different than a few weeks ago, before this council, we were asked to vote and participate on a private outside contractor who works at Tufts University, their custodial staff. We were asked to take a vote to support them as it relates to them not losing their jobs. Something entirely different. It's got nothing to do with the Medford City Council. We were led to believe they were Tufts University employees. They were outside paid contractors. And by being outside paid contractors, further removed from the whole issue. And what did we do? We took a vote to support them. And something right here in our own building, something that represents the heartbeat of this community where people live, we're going to be precluded from going to any board or any meeting and talking to them because we're doing something wrong, we're strong-arming them. You're not. What is your opinion? What does an opinion mean? It means to offer what you think in your mind, what the situation might be and what you might want it to be. You want to look at the zoning ordinances and look at the criteria and the priority that it needs to take. If you need some revision, so be it. But to say we're going to check the zoning first before we even go forward, absolutely, absolutely ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing that I could hear of. You're making it sound like we have to just stay in this particular room and we can't go to before any board, any meeting, any commission because it's undue influence. Well, that's absurd. Absolutely absurd. It's just as absurd as the vote we took that night to go out of our way to protect outside employees contracted by Tufts University, not even their own employees who we thought that was happening. And we took a vote to make sure to try to protect them to keep their jobs.
Yes, that evening, I believe the company was it DTZ? We were well aware that it was a contracted company. They got up here and represented themselves as a contracted company and members of SEIU, Service Employees International United. No, I understand they're not employees at Tufts Universities, but it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. So what, if they were Tufts University employees, we don't want them getting laid off, but because they have to work, because they happen to work for an outside entity, okay, let them go? I mean, I don't see any difference in that at all.
President, should we be aware of the fact that in your sheriff's department, they may want to lay off employees, and we should take a vote to make sure that the sheriff keeps all the employees? Should we do that in every agency that's going out there?
I'm not going to discuss it because that's my place of employment.
Well, that's your place of employment.
Yeah,
So if you
I
were
mean-
going to get laid off, you'd like to have somebody be there to support you, wouldn't you?
Once again, the more Councilor Penta talks, he backs up what I'm trying to say. It's twice this evening you've done what I've tried to say. Earlier in the evening, you contradicted me, and then in the end, you end up agreeing with me. So it's kind of, I find it kind of comical. But with that being said, Madam President, with this particular issue, I would like to, the motion before us is to discuss it. So there's been plenty of discussion. I don't know if the council is going to bring forward a motion other than this, but to go one step further, I know firsthand from going to the Board of Appeals over the years and following the rulings and stuff, and I'm sure you know this as well as a, congratulations being one of the top female attorneys in the area, by the way, Vice President Councilor Lungo-Kern. But with that being said, the Board of Appeals, I'd like to find out how many of these were approved over the years. I would say it's less than 12. So for us to sit here and say it's changing the fabric of our entire community, matter of fact, we had someone, and I'm not going to use the name, but was going for one of these who worked for the United States Senator's office. At the time, it was a congressman's office, and it was denied. And it was denied. So this is not a major problem. Now, this particular one, I don't know where 198 and 202 Harvard Street is. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to discuss it prior to going down and maybe looking at the property and everything else. But with that being said, the Board of Appeals, I think it's incumbent upon us, rather than just sit here and say it's changing the character of all our neighborhoods, I think we have to ask the question, how many of these were approved over, say, the last 10 years? And if it's more than a dozen, I will be shocked. Shocked. And in a city of our size, I'm pretty sure it's less than a dozen, because they are very, very strict. And anyone that knows anything about the Board of Appeals, there's only a few criteria that they can actually approve something. One is when it's created a hardship, I believe. And what's the other one, Mr. Clerk? Do you know off the top of your head? It's if there's a financial hardship. That's the main one. So I just think we spent 45 minutes on an issue that Councilor Carviello is probably right. I know he does his due diligence. He drives around more than any councilors that sit here, and he checks out all the properties that he brings up and stuff. So, as I said, I'd like to reserve my judgment on that particular matter. But with that being said, I'd like to make a motion, if you don't mind, on how many of these were actually approved in the last 10 fiscal years. And then we can actually tell if there's a major problem in the community and we should be putting in some sort of zoning ordinance or zoning law. But knowing that, Board, I will be shocked, like I said, if it's more than a dozen, because I get more phone calls of the projects that get denied, and sometimes they're legitimate reasons, but just the hardship or whatever criteria that needs to be met is not met. And I know Attorney Arena, he is so tight when it comes to ethical standards. It's amazing. So.
Yeah.
Madam President,
By address, Madam President. If we're going to get a listing from the last 10 years, we want to get them by address so we can see what pockets of the city these changes are happening in as well. You know, I have no problem requesting the information, but, you know, my concern is the fact that we're the legislative body that actually makes the zoning ordinances. We have a zoning ordinance that gives the Zoning Board of Appeals this power. Now we're telling them, don't exercise that power because we said so? We gave them the power. If we want to take it away, we can take it away, but there's a process to do that. I'm not saying that Councilor Carviello is doing something wrong. He's doing his job. He's going out there and he's exercising his due diligence, which he does every day. And I understand exactly where he's coming from, and I certainly have concerns for the fabric of the neighborhood, too. I certainly have concerns for the fabric of the neighborhood. But I think that there's a proper process that's in place, and I don't want to run roughshod over the process, and I certainly don't want to make any steps that are going to put us in a position to be politicizing an issue that shouldn't be politicizing, or politicizing a process that shouldn't be politicized. So that's where I'm coming from, Madam President. Insofar as the Tufts University situation, the Tufts University is a resident of the city of Medford. We don't have any oversight, control, or dictation over their operations. We can make recommendations and we can make suggestions, but the Zoning Board of Appeals and the rules and regulations that they fall under and that they are there to enforce are created by us. We make them up. We're the ones that make them. We make the zoning ordinances. We're the body that creates the zoning ordinances.
and now we're going to tell them which ordinances to pay attention to and which ones not to. I have some concern about that, and I certainly do question whether or not it's undue political influence. With that being said, Madam President, it's no criticism of Councilor Caviello or his efforts. I think that he's raised a good issue, and it's a good issue to discuss. I think we as a body have a duty now to sit down and figure out what course of action we want to take in order to ensure that the fabric of the neighborhood is protected, and that the process remains a process that's free from undue influence.
Why would you want to sit down and discuss the ordinances now, after Council Caviello brought up something that's a concern, if you don't think it's a concern until the Board of Appeals? I'm going to disagree with all of you except with this particular issue. One house can tear down a neighborhood. There was a house in Forest Street. I'm going to leave the number and the location nameless. And that house turned out to be a crack house. And that was going to it was causing a tremendous amount of problem. So to say that one house, or any house, no, you don't need a quantitative number. It doesn't have to be 12, 15, or 20. It can take just one house to bring down a neighborhood. And this house almost did it.
I requested the addresses of the homes because I wanted to see if there was any type of trend or any type of cluster in a certain neighborhood or a certain area where these requests have been issued, these requests have been made and then later issued. So that was why I asked that the address should be there, so that we can see and we can track it. They can say, yeah, 5 requests came in, we approved 2 of them, and that's it. We still don't know where these houses were. We still don't know where it happened. We still don't know if it happened in a blighted area. We don't know if it happened in an area that was suitable for it. I mean, one area that I think of is right off of High Street, across from Essex Street, where they knocked down a dentist office and they built 7 homes. You know what I mean? 7 $600,000 homes, all on the tax rolls. You know, so it's just something to look at. That's all I'm saying, Madam President.
Obviously, about a month or 2 ago, we had a detective from the Medford Police Department here, and to say a crack house can pop up, we have these problems in every single neighborhood in this city. Every single neighborhood in this city, we have problems when it comes to people selling drugs out of a certain house. So to say it's as a result of these or that, what's the word? Not when they condoize it, when it goes from a 2 to 3, conversion, exactly, I'm sorry. When, to say that it's as a result of conversions. Forest Street may have been one particular case, but we've had a drug bust on Wareham Street, $40,000, a gun, heroin, and everything else within the last 7 days. We have other drug busts within the last 3 or 4 months up in North Medford. The detective that was here a few weeks ago talked about how each and every counselor, and he knows where all of us live, within walking distance of all of our own houses, there's been drug arrests from residents.
You missed the point because you say I'm following you, so maybe you should follow me. I'm talking about applications that go before the board, not houses that had nothing to do with the board.
You just said they turn into crack houses.
Well, the application had to go before the board. Talking about applications that went before
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If I had a situation near my house where my family's growing up and it is a crack house, and there was a potential for a developer to come in and make it maybe a 2-family house or something else, I would go to the Board of Appeals and I would support the conversion with the hopes of having the crack house vacated. So in some cases, this is actually good. Look at Boynton Road. We've been talking about Boynton Road, number 56 Boynton Road. If there was a conversion that could take place that would be good in that neighborhood, I'm sure Mr. Crowley would be here and his neighbors to speak on behalf of it. But there is particular cases where you're better off taking a conversion than dealing with some of the nonsense that goes on. I know in Councilor Caviello's neighborhood, there's a house that there's overdoses in weekly. People going in and out. I mean, Councilor Caviello, what was it, two deaths or 1 death there? 2 deaths. I'm sure the neighbors would want that to be converted if someone came in and wanted to clean up the property.
It already is 2 families.
Exactly. But, so there is cases that the Board of Appeals should take into consideration, and they have. So I'd like to get that number, though, because I think we're all going to be surprised by the small amount of approvals for conversions from a single family or a 2-family or a 3-family. So any conversion higher, what's the question? We got to ask the actual question rather than get it back. We didn't understand the question. Any conversion that added a different, an additional unit. A single to a 2, a 2 to a 3, a 3 to a 4, so.
I think this sort of spun a little out of control. No one is saying that we influence any undue influence over the appeal board. 10 years ago, there wasn't 2 train stations coming in that neighborhood. Now in the next 5 years or next few years, there's going to be a train station, and there's going to be more people there. And as you can see, the properties are selling, and you're going to see more people they're paying record prices. You can't charge enough money to support the record prices that they're paying. And like I said before, the other one gets there. But again, there was no intent of undue influence on the appeal board. It was a matter of that there's going to be more and more of these coming forward in the next year or the next couple of years. And I think we need to keep our eye on it. That was the intent of this, not to influence the appeal board.
Thank you. Councilor Knight.
Madam President, in proposing, in putting this question together, I think it would be very important that we clarify that it would be asking the Zoning Board of Appeals how many of those conversions occurred by way of approval of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Correct.
So matters that were before them.
By way of approval, correct. Okay. Name and address for the record, sorry.
Thank you. Ken Kraus, 50 Mystic Street. I just wanted to provide some information about the upcoming Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. It was referenced as potentially next week. It originally was scheduled for next week, the 26th of May, but it has been rescheduled for June 10th. It's 7 p.m. here in City Hall. And in addition to the Harvard Street project that was mentioned, there are 4 other projects on the agenda just for anybody who might be interested. The same, actually, Harvard Street owner has a petition to do some work at the 23 Forest Street building, which is across the street from the post office, to convert that property from 3 residential dwellings, I think apartments and offices, into 5 condos and retail space. There's a proposal to add 2 residential units to the building at 241 Boston Avenue, which is a commercial building near North Street. There's a petition to add a undersized parking space to 16 Dunbar Avenue, which is in the Haynes Square area. And there's a petition to operate a kennel on 168 Mystic Avenue. So again, that's June 10th at 7 o'clock here at City Hall for anybody that's interested in any of those projects.
Thank you, Ken.
The meeting for the Winthrop Street development is before the Community Development Board tomorrow, the 20th, here at 6:30.
Thank you, Ken. Name and address for the record.
Mario Martin, 18 Benton Road. I actually live pretty close to Harvard, so it's actually right in the corner. I wanted to thank, by the way, Councilor Gaviello for bringing up this important issue as a resident on Benton Road and Harvard Street. This does affect me. The question I had for the council is actually, if it's, as Councilor Camuso mentioned earlier, if it's essentially difficult for zoning boards to approve conversions or additions, in this case especially to a non-conforming home, how do we know that compliance is actually being enforced? Meaning, how do we know landlords aren't actually going out and, if they know they can't get it approved, you know, how do we know that they're not doing it behind the back of the city? You know, and how are we enforcing them? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Camuso.
I think that that's a good question, and we have a code enforcement department. A lot of times, most of the complaints come from actual neighbors that will see additional vehicles and things of that nature. Unfortunately, as we all know as city councilors, we don't find out we don't find out all the time about these illegal units until it goes to sell, or they're doing a home inspection or doing the appraisal for the taxes, which we're going through right now, where the city actually sends someone in the house and they're looking for stoves in the basement and stuff in the basement that would indicate that it's, but I'd say 90% of them, and we've heard this from our building department, comes from neighbors' complaints. So they do take them very serious when it does come up, but if they don't know, they can't do anything about it. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Mr. Castanetti?
Thank you. Andrew Castanetti, Cushing Street, Medford, Mass. I'll make it brief as possible. Our city is getting more congested and it's getting worse. Mr. Caviello, you're right. By right, a real estate owner, the way I understand it, can go do whatever they please and build out within the zoning rights. I believe it's through Board of Appeals, through a hardship, that they would have to prove hardship and duress of some sort that they could get a variance in order to go from a 3-family to a 5 or whatever if it's not allowed in that area. So I guess, Mr. Caviello, you should go to the meeting and express your concern, and other people should also if they have some issues with that. But most importantly, I would worry about Tufts University. I would make sure that Tufts University is buying all their real estate through Walnut Hill Properties to keep the real estate tax bill in place, or else it becomes a nonprofit and we lose more and more of our real estate tax base, or some other entity that will pay real estate tax. I don't care if it's commercial or residential.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the motion, do you want them request a moratorium, or do you want to? So we'll ask for how many conversions in the last 10 years, and then the last year by address, and also how many are coming forward within the next 2 to 4 months. Okay, we'll take off the moratorium. So we'll be notified when they come forward? Can we be
I think the neighbors should know there's going to be more, they expect more, and people should be aware of what's going to be coming down the line.
So, by resolution by Councilor Carviello, amended by Councilor Marks, Councilor Knight, and Councilor Camuso. Motion for approval.
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those passed. 15-471, offered by Councilor Knight, be resolved that motion to withdraw. All those in favor? All those opposed? Papers withdrawn. Paper 15-472, offered by Councilor Knight, be resolved the contractors performing the construction work on Winthrop Street between Route 16 and Route 60 remove all construction equipment, materials, and debris at the conclusion of each day. Councilor Knight.
Madam President, thank you very much, and thank you for indulging me once again on this topic. I've gotten a number of complaints, Madam President, from the residents of the area, many of whom are my neighbors, relative to the closure of one lane of traffic going down Winthrop Street and one lane of traffic going up Winthrop Street, so that these contractors can store their materials during the day and after the work hours. Now, I can understand blocking off lanes of traffic to ensure their safety and to allow them to have access to their equipment and materials when construction's going on. But at this point in time, with this mini big dig that's been going on for the past 2 years now, the area is just looking blighted and terrible. And this is a gateway to the city. As someone gets off the highway and they go down Route 16 and take a right onto Route 38 to go up to Winthrop Circle, they're going to drive through an area that's just blighted at this point in time. There's a generator, there's cones, there's curbs, there's piles of dirt, there's old rusted pipes, there's new pipes, there's plastic, there's a porta potty on the sidewalk at the corner of Winthrop Street and High Street. I mean, it can't get any worse at this point in time, Madam President. I think that, you know,
we have an opportunity to request that these materials be removed at the end of the day. And I don't think that that's too much to ask. You know, there's ample space for the contractor at their yard. They're keeping 2 bulldozers out there. They can move the bulldozers. They can put the bulldozers in a parking lot. They can put the bulldozers at the condon shell. They can put it in a number of places, Madam President. But one of the places that it shouldn't be is sitting in a lane of traffic, blocking a lane of traffic, and creating congestion and creating traffic hardships, especially with the current condition of the roadway that it's in. So, Madam President, I'd ask my council colleagues to support this resolution and to make the request that at the end of each workday, the area is cleaned out of all construction materials, debris, and equipment in the interest of public safety and in the interest of, you know, egress into the city. I think it's just a beautification issue at this point in time, Madam President. The residents have been very patient in dealing with this issue. Earlier in the meeting tonight, we had a very long discussion about what these residents are going to have to face again in 18 short months. So I think at this point in time, they need a little bit of relief, Madam President, and I think that this will do it for a short period of time. But, you know, I'd also like to see when this construction project is going to end. 2 months ago, when we made the request of the DPW, they said that there were 18 more connections that needed to take place. And that led me to believe that how many of them had been done. Led me to question how many have actually been done if they need 18 more to do. So this project's been taking an extremely long time. I can only imagine what the budget looks like. I think this was something that was supposed to be wrapped up in short order, and it hasn't been, Madam President. So in the interest of mitigation, I'd make this request, and I'd ask my colleagues to support it.
Absolutely. Motion for approval.
Second.
Seconded by Council President Dela Russo. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Paper passes. Paper 15-473, offered by Councilor Knight. Be it resolved, the city clerk provide a listing of all requests for budget appropriations made by the council for review in concert with the city council budget hearings. Councilor Knight.
Madam President, again, thank you very much. We're going to have budget hearings coming up in June to go over the state budget. I think for the past year, this council has been very active and involved in lobbying for issues and matters that are important to it. And I think that now is the right time for us to take a look at these materials, go through them all, and to develop our position as we go forward to set the budget for the next fiscal year, Madam President. I think that it's very important for us to maybe take a look at what we've requested, prioritize them, and bring those to those issues to the administration, and make sure that they're included in the budget process, Madam President. So I'd ask that my colleagues support this resolution in order for us to prepare for council budget hearings.
Motion for approval by Councilor Knight. All those in favor? Seconded by Council President Dela Russo. All those opposed? Paper passes. Paper 15-4...
I'd like to withdraw at this point in time, Madam President.
Motion to withdraw. Paper 15-474. All those in favor? All those opposed? Paper is withdrawn. Paper 15-475, offered by Councilor Knight. Be it resolved, the Harbor Master and Project Manager for the Craddock Bridge renovation project conduct an information session for boat owners to determine what waterway restrictions will be implemented during the renovations of the Craddock Bridge. Councilor Knight.
Madam President, thank you very much. I was contacted by a number of avid fishermen who, during previous construction projects, had loaded up their boat with their bait and their friends and their barbecue and their food, and they got on the ocean on the river at 4 o'clock in the morning and tried to make their way out to the harbor to go fishing for the day, and they were met with a roadblock, no access to the harbor. And these same individuals purchase a slip every year to house their boat in the upper lake, and it's a significant expense for them. So in discussions that we've had, one of the issues that was raised was whether or not there were going to be restrictions for these individuals to take their boats downriver to get into the harbor. I've had some discussions with our Office of Community Development and the project manager, and there will be some restrictions. The project manager has changed on the project at this point in time, and so I'm requesting that the harbor master and the new project manager sit down and develop a schedule. And the schedule can be posted and shared with boat owners, and an information session be conducted so that people that have concerns about this can sit down and can actually speak to the individuals that are making the decisions and the harbor master to figure out what best course of action will be.
Motion for approval by Councilor Knight. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Paper passes. Paper 15-476, offered by Councilor Knight.
Madam President, I withdraw.
Motion to withdraw. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is withdrawn. Paper 15-477, offered by Councilor Knight. Be it resolved, the administration provide the council with a listing of all vacant board and commission positions that are established by way of ordinance, statute, or state law. Councilor Knight.
Madam President, thank you very much. Early last month, I had my office hours, and an individual came before me and raised some concern relative to vacancies in certain boards and commissions and the lack of meeting in a frequency that would be established by statute, ordinance, or by way of law. So with that being said, Madam President, I took a look at the listing of boards and commissions and noticed that there are a variety of vacancies that exist in those boards and commissions, and I think with the change of administration coming, it would be very important for us to see what positions are vacant at this point in time, what's filled, what's not filled, and then take a look at why they're not filled and maybe make a recommendation to fill certain positions, Madam President. And I have no problem with that. And Madam President, I'd like to amend the paper to request what the salaries are.
Very good. On the amendment, motion of Council of the Night for approval as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Offered by Councilor Penta, be it resolved that the future of the Lawrence Memorial Hospital be discussed. Councilor Penta.
I'd like to refer this to next Tuesday's meeting, please.
On the motion of Councilor Penta to table this, to take it up next Tuesday, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is tabled. Offered by Councilor Caraviallo, be it resolved that the Medford City Council offers sincere condolences to the family of Warren Ramirez. He was very active in the Grace Episcopal Church and St. Joseph Choir. His presence in our community will be sorely missed. Also, 15-481, if I may, offered by Councilor Penta. Be it resolved that an expression of sympathy be forwarded to the family of Warren Ramirez, a former bank official at the Brookline Bank, former Arlington Savings Bank, on his passing. A special expression of recognition be extended to Kathleen Beebe, his special love in his life, and a most wonderful woman who dedicated herself to Warren and his family. Also, if we could, one more condolence offered by Councilor Penta, 15-482. Be it resolved that an expression of sympathy be forwarded to the family of Joseph Callahan, the former city auditor, upon his passing. Mr. Callahan was a gentle and caring person who always performed his job with courtesy and professionalism. Councilor Penta.
Mr. President, this past week, can't say you had the opportunity. This past week you haven't be part of the funeral services for Juan Ramirez, and it took place at the Grace Episcopal Church. And what was very different about it was the fact that the choir from St. Joseph's Church on High Street, as well as the choir from the Grace Episcopal Church, joined together for this particular mass service, so to speak. Warren, as everyone knows, sang at both churches, St. Joe's and Sacred Heart, and very dedicated to both the churches and very dedicated to the people in both those churches, and fine representative. It was an outstanding funeral performance. And Kathleen Beebe, who was the love of his life, there participating with this family, extremely wonderful lady, strong, who took care of Warren and his mother for many, many years, and just a fine and wonderful lady to be recognized as well. Lastly, anyone who knew Joseph Callahan, who was our former city auditor, he was a very gentle and caring individual. He did his job quietly and with professionalism, and he truly personified a true public employee. So to his family, we offer likewise this expression of sympathy.
Thank you. Yes. Again, I want to convey my condolences to Warren Ramirez and Kathleen. And I mean, I've known Warren for many years, and you see him in the square all the time, and always there for you whenever you need. Good man, good family, and he's going to be missed in the area. Yes, yes, yes.
$15,487, offered by President Della Russo. Be it resolved that the Medford City Council congratulate the retirees of 2014-15 of the Medford Fire Department for the years of service and protection of the citizens of Medford. The four retirees are Firefighter Matthew T. Jewett, retired May 2nd, 2014, after 5 years of service. Lieutenant Timothy A. Beckwith, retired June 2nd, 2014, after 31 years of service. Firefighter Timothy M. Powers, retired October 5th, 2014, after 34 years of service. And firefighter Michael E. Greer, retired February 1st, 2015, after 32 years of service. The retired firefighters will be honored at the annual retirement banquet on Friday, May 29th at 7 p.m. at the Firefighters Hall at 340 Salem Street here in Medford. And the council president will be on hand, along with any of the other councilors who are present, to present the certificates of achievement and congratulation. Congratulations to the retirees. Motion be received and placed on file. Move approval. Councilor Knight. All those in favor, all those opposed. Motion approved. I think we've achieved everything we came to do tonight.
Mr. President?
Mr. President.
Councilor Caraviallo.
Thank you. Mr. President, if I can remind, tomorrow is the annual Veterans Luncheon here. So anyone who doesn't know or wants to attend, all veterans are free. 12 o'clock here, there's going to be a couple of speakers. Our own John Gillane will be one of our speakers, just returned from Vietnam a couple of weeks ago. So again, for any veteran or anybody in the community who wants to come, 12 o'clock here tomorrow in the council chambers.
Awesome.
Not too late to get a ticket?
Sorry?
Not too late to get a ticket?
If you're a veteran, you're free.
Never too late for you.
Yeah. You can come tomorrow and get a ticket.
Very good. Councilor Penta, you had something for us.
Yeah, next Monday, forthcoming Monday, is going to be Memorial Day, and I just want to remind everyone that you're all invited. I believe it's 10 o'clock in the morning at Oak Grove Cemetery for the services that will be partaking, and it should be a fine day, remembering all our veterans, and at the same time, it's a nice way for the community to get out and see each other and say hello.
It's always a beautiful moment there.
Always a beautiful
moment. It is. Thank you, Councilor. The records of the May 12th, 2015 council meeting were passed to Councilor Knight. Mr. Councilor, how'd you find those?
Mr. President, I have a problem. Yes.
So, Councilor Penta, would you like to discuss that with Councilor Knight?
I'll discuss it with the maker of the motion and resolve it for next
Oh, so
week.
we'll resolve it and have the proper amendation made. So on that motion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Caraviallo. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion to adjourn.